first year, and they're all like, "This is a ton better." I'm like, "Well, yeah, if you only use your phone for everything, I'm like, it's a lot easier."
It was super hard getting people to switch from ESPN or to switch from anywhere else to go to
Oh,
Sleeper.
geez.
So I was like, and then they're like, yeah, it's not so bad, especially the chat, the chat room and
Like
stuff.
3 years I've been fighting to get people to change. I'm like, "Come on!" And then I got 2 leagues to change this year, and they were like, "Dude, you were right. This is so much better." I'm like, "Thank you. I
Do
tried
you
to
guys?
tell you."
Yeah,
It's the most frustrating thing. Yeah, and like my leagues are like, "Oh, put a proposal together." I'm like, "Proposal to go to a better platform? Like what else do I need to tell you? Like it should be done right by saying it's better."
right. All right, you guys ready? I just put us on live,
Oh, yeah.
so we are ready to go here. Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. My name is John McGlynn. McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. Justin Taylor at JT Orange and myself will have a lot of fun today with our guest, Johnny. What time is it? Game time from the Fantasy Whispers. So today we'll talk to Johnny Game Time about some of his settings he prefers and leagues he plays in, things he'd like his commissioner to do, some news, some injury reports, waiver wire advice, and as usual, we'll evaluate a team to see what Johnny and Justin recommend, either rebuild, remodel, or how to adjust this roster. So first of all, JT, what's going on? What did I miss since I talked to you last?
Well, I've been going through, the 7 phases of denial, going through everything crazy. Everybody that I thought was going to be good is bad. Everybody thought was going to be bad is good. I was really angry on Twitter in all my leagues 2 weeks ago. I finally have settled down. I've realized some of these teams are just going to be terrible no matter what, and I'm just accepting it now and just moving on with my life.
I can't tell you how many leagues I'm in. I'm in the top 2 or 3 scoring, including the fishbowl. Like in the top 2 or 3 in scoring in our
Ooh.
division or our league. And I'm 0-4 or 1 and whatever they are now, 1-5 or whatever. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I play the best score in every league every week, and it just happens to be that. So now I have like 986 points scored against me and like 986 points scored for myself. And other people have like 595 points scored against them. I'm like, how do I have 400 more points scored against me than other teams in this league? This is ridiculous.
Yeah,
And I was in a neighborhood league before where I was the number 1 scorer at the end of the year. And I started the season off 0-7 as a redraft league. And I didn't make the playoffs. And I was the highest scorer in the entire league by like 300 points.
This
That's
brings
why
up a perfect point. Yeah,
yep.
always go scoring. Highest scorer has to make the playoffs. I like to do
Yeah.
the final 2 spots make the playoffs. I like to
Mhm.
go the last 2 spots highest score, but at least I have talked every league I'm into. The final spot of the playoffs should always be the team with the most points because of that reason. It drives
That's
me
our
insane.
Yeah, I like that rule. I'm trying to get my league mates to go over to it, but again, it's like anything. It's pulling teeth and like, change what? But I definitely think that's a rule that once more and more people realize and switch over to it and it becomes more of a normal setting, I think people are going to be much happier with that because yeah, that happens so often. And you're like looking at a roster. I've done that where at the end of the season, I'd look at a roster and I'm like, how in the world did this team not make the playoffs and go on a run? But it happens. You just get unlucky.
So I'm in all home leagues, so we have divisions because there's more and more. We have a division lotteries where actually
Yeah.
division winners get to pick their opponents, and stuff like that. It makes for a lot of smack talk at the end of the year when you're picking, when you're the last guy to get or you're the first guy to get picked because you suck so bad. And so we have 4 divisions with 3 teams for each one, and then we have ours is set up where the top 6 teams obviously make the playoffs, and then whoever loses in the first round of the winners bracket, they play each other in round 2, and then the winner of that game gets actually the 8th pick, and the loser gets the 7th pick. So you don't get rewarded for tanking that game. And then our our number 1 to 6 is the toilet bowl playoffs, and that goes by max points for. So you get lottery balls you get like 40 lottery balls if you have the least amount of max points for. So you really can't tank because it goes into a draft lottery, and then the winner of that losers bracket also gets pick 113 for the rookie draft. So a
The
lot
one
of home league
the,
incentive stuff like that.
the one bad thing about the divisions, and this is it happens. It happens in real football, so you could say, oh well, we're trying to mimic that, so it is what it is. But like I had a league last year where the top 3 teams were all in my division. I tied with number 1 overall, but because of the division rule, the top 3 division winners automatically get top 3 seeding. So then I got pushed all the way down to a 4 seed, and then I was playing a 5 seed which technically was actually third in the league because of points and his record, but because of the division and all the tiebreakers and stuff. So it ended up kind of sucking in that way. But I do like the division and Smack Talk. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's 4 divisions, and then the last 2 opponents are the 2 highest scorers. Those are the wild card teams. So 4 division winners and the two highest wild card scoring teams. So
cool.
that makes it the best. That way, the top 6 teams are usually in the bracket. So.
I always tell a story about this one league I'm in, home league. I made the playoffs 6 straight years as the last team in because my record sucked every year, but I got in points and I made the championship game 5 out of 6 years, getting as the last team
we
in.
We need to change this rule. We need to get like that's the only way to get them out of the playoffs.
But I was like, this is why you had to have that. I'm like, you got to have the team that has the most points left over get in, because then once you're in, I upset everybody the whole way through. But once you're in, your team, even if you got off a bad start, and I tend to draft young, even in redraft leagues. So a lot of times my teams don't hit till the end of the season. So a lot of times I'll have not a great record, but my team will come smoking down the stretch. And so I always am pushing hard for that reason.
Hell yeah. You got to do that, man. It's the way to go. So let's, Johnny, tell me about yourself. Johnny Hicks, tell me all about yourself, where the Twitter machine can find you at, all that kind of good stuff, the Fantasy Whispers, all the good stuff that I listen to in my podcast when I'm at work all the time.
Yeah, appreciate that. You find me on Twitter at Johnny_Gametime. And like you said, Fantasy Whispers is our YouTube channel. We're also on podcasting and things like that. Just talking ball, having fun. I do it with my best friends. We have guests on, things like that. I'm more of like the editor kind of. I mean, I like to think I'm pretty good at what I do, as far as like predicting players and things like that, but who doesn't? But as far as our channel goes, I do a lot of the visual graphics and editing, things like that. Really like doing that. So that's typically what I do most of the day, is I'm doing more of the graphics and editing and things like that. And I'm a new father too, so I've been enjoying that life.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been awesome. I got a little baby girl.
Oh, congrats. I have a 26-year-old.
Yeah, I know. Well, I got to give John. I got to give a shout out to you because that's how I met you. Was in the Scott Fish Bowl. We were in the same league last year. Shout out to that. And I remember I was like, I'm so nervous to have a kid, and all of you guys were just like, especially you're just like, I've got kids. You're gonna love them, and it was good. It was really comforting. So
the best. I tell the story all the time. The best thing about having I guess when I had boys first. And the difference between having I have a 26-year-old, a 21-year-old, an 18 and a 17-year-old. So I have when I had boys, like a couple months into it, you bring them to the park. You're like, let's go, man. Let's start kicking your feet. Let's learn how to swing. You bring girls to the park. You put them in the thing. You're like, that's okay, princess. I got you. Take your time. You could be so much more of like a sissy with girls than you can with boys. You kind of want to be like, let's go. We got a football game to play in like a year and a half.
Right. Exactly.
But that's my neighbor told me that one time when I was a little kid. He's like, when you have kids, think of your kids as like a tree. You like if the tree starts going this way, you got to put a line and pull it back and put a line and pull it back this way. And you can watch it grow the way you want it to, because if you let that tree go like this, by the time you realize what's going on, it's already too late. You can't bend it anymore.
Yeah.
So
makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Good news is she loves football already, so that's the good news. So.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tell me about the day in the life of one Johnny Gametime.
Like I said, wake up. Usually have diaper duty with the baby. We do a little playtime, and then surfing Twitter, seeing what everyone's talking about. Getting in on some of the gossip and stuff like that. Interesting stuff that has been coming out. I mean, just like NFL sideline stuff, man, and I don't know, it gets kind of fun, gets entertaining, and then like I said, jump into some editing, do some notes and research and things like that, and then cook dinner. Usually try to be the best husband as possible and jump on some live streams if possible. Right now though, we're trying to sell our condo, so I'm staying at the in-laws, so they're not used to the streaming life. They're not used to how much I was, on camera. So they were like, I don't know if you can necessarily do as much while you're here. So luckily I had to scale back a little bit, but the guys are keeping the channel going every day and putting out content. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I met Travi at the expo last year, so it was.
I
It was
can't
nice.
wait to missed out on that because of the new baby. So, but I can't wait to meet you guys.
I was there the last 2 years, and it's been an absolute blast both times. And I didn't think they could do a better job in year two. I'm like, I don't want to go every year and kind of be boring the same stuff over and over again. And it was 5 times as fun year two, and I imagine it's probably gonna be better next year too. And I'll be there every year. I got an awesome wife, and like I don't do any cooking. My wife went to chef school for like 4 years, so
Oh,
I,
not yeah,
I just sit back and eat. That's
yeah.
my
Lucky.
hobby's getting fat and doing
Well,
podcasts.
see, that was if you guys like saw my wife, you guys, most people are like, oh, you totally out punted your coverage, and I agree. And the reason why I was able to do that was through the kitchen and my cooking skills. So I don't lie to people.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. So are you mainly a redraft or a dynasty guy? Well, what's your background?
I was mainly a redraft guy for many years, and then as we started doing this and actually being like, hey, like let's actually start taking this a little bit more seriously, getting a little bit more background on different aspects of the game, and so we started a dynasty league, and we've had that running for like 4 or 5 years now. And I'll tell you, I love Dynasty. I absolutely love it. Redraft is fun. I really enjoy it. My league of record is redraft. And so that's really, but I love doing prospecting of players. And then like everyone loves to be right. Like I said, so you can get these guys so young, and then you have like, kind of beat your chest a little bit better when these players go off, or if you're off a year, which I tend to be sometimes on players. You can still have them on your roster, and if they hit the next year, then it's like, okay, cool. Whereas redraft, you're like, oh, I had them last year, I was just a year too early.
My dynasty leagues now, I learned the hard way about being patient and getting rid of guys a year too early. I got rid of the Joe Mixons and the Stephon Diggs and the Josh Allens and the Dak
Oh
Prescotts and everything
no.
way too early, and my team is suffering for it now. And I'm in like an ultimate rebuild, watching everybody else win with my old players. So
Yeah,
yeah,
The
that's the
worst.
worst.
Oh.
Oh, that's the worst.
yeah, I tell you, it is the worst.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrible. So, what's your favorite food sitting around glued to the TV on Sunday watching Scott Hansen on the Red Zone?
Dude, I gotta say, I love doing like wings, like any kind of like bar food. I'm totally about like wings, pizza, like Doritos. Give me chips and salsa. Like I'm a foodie. I'm with you. So like I just like spreads of stuff, like a variety. I don't just like one little thing. So give me all the snack foods.
Across the board, yeah. There's a bar. I think I said before. There's a bar by our house that's got It's $6. You get a big fat hamburger with cheese on there. You get tater tots or French fries and a 16-ounce beer for like $6 on Sunday afternoon. It's like, how do you
That's a
beat that?
steal. That's a steal right there.
Yeah, I get 3 of them, so it's.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, no judgment here.
What's your favorite hobby now? Before you started playing fantasy football, what you used to do, or card collecting stuff like
Yeah.
that, cars? Like, what you do before?
Cars that's another good one. When I saw this question, I was like, card collecting is I'm big into sports cards. When I was younger, it was a hobby that I really enjoyed, and my dad like brought like this big box of football cards home, and I just like spent one summer and I was just organizing all of them. I hope he still has. My parents are somewhat pack rats, so I'm really hoping he still has it, because that has like 3 Tom Brady rookie cards in there, one of which is like a $6,000 card. I know for sure. So I'm really praying like my parents were like able to keep that when they moved to Indiana, still searching their basement for it. I had my brother on the lookout for it. But yeah, big sports card collector. And then, once COVID hit and it really kind of revamped and got kind of cool again, I jumped back in, and yeah, I really enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, we had a guy on last week. Me and JT were talking about all the cards we had from the 80s and stuff like that, and how they're worth about 38 cents for all the cards we collected for the last 25 years of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. There aren't many that are still valuable, but if you have them, then
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years in the fantasy community?
hopefully our show is like really popping off. I love our Whisper Nation is awesome. They're growing. We grow every day. So yeah, hopefully just more well known in the industry and having more people on and just enjoying the conversation. That's the big thing that we really learned this year, is just how awesome the community and like analysts are. Like I know you get on Twitter and sometimes it seems a little like beefy and things like that, and some things can come off a little bit more harsh than when it's a conversation. But yeah, truly just having people on and walking in the footsteps of some of the people that when I was initially loving and falling in love with fantasy football were people that I listened to, like the Liz Losas, the Adam Rinks, things like that. And it's like now having them on the shows and walking with them and being like, hey, we're officially here, like it's really cool. It's humbling, but it's really fun and keeps us going for more. So hopefully still doing this and hopefully making a decent living at that point. At least my wife hopes so.
You're in my rotation for podcasts. I love your guys' show. I love your guests you've had on recently too. I know I didn't see anything going on last week from you guys. I think somebody Travis said you guys were busy last week, something going on, whatever. But everybody. I didn't do a show last week either, and I hope nothing is wrong. But I can't wait to hear you guys back on the show on the film again. So I heard
should
one
be
that came
good
out today.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties. Then I was away, and I'm like the technical guy too. I'm like, okay, do this. And so it's just a hectic chaos. But we're back, or the guys are back, and we'll see how many shows I can end up doing with the parent-in-laws here.
All right. Last question. If you get one chance to go back to your high school graduation day, you got 2 minutes to talk to yourself. What do you tell yourself?
To enjoy the ride a little bit more, to be proud of what you do. Honestly, I think like that's something that it sounds kind of weird, but going through the whole like mental health stuff, which was big for me during like COVID and things like that, and started seeing a therapist and really just talking through and really just feeling proud of all the accomplishments that I had made, or and just enjoy it a little bit more. I was so kind of head down, and that's how I was taught growing up. Was just kind of work hard, keep your head down, and you'll get where you want to go. And not saying that that's wrong, that my dad veered me in the wrong direction. It's just sometimes it's nice to peek up and look at what you've done and the people that are around you and with you, because that's the more important thing, is the people around you and them enjoying what you're doing as well. So I would just say enjoy the ride a little bit more.
Good answer.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, COVID was tough for a lot of people, so I'm glad you're able to see your way through it. And I know a lot of people that have kind of come out from bad situations and on the right side of the rainbow. And I'm glad
Absolutely.
to see that's the way it's going. So
yeah, absolutely, highly encourage it.
cool. All right, let's start with some fantasy football stuff here. We got some injuries going on. You guys jump in whenever whenever you want to. Anything you got to chime in with, feel free, and I'll call you guys out as we go when we get the current events and team by team stuff. So the Panthers, some injuries. The Panthers have a coach with a broken wallet now. Matt Rule got fired, so
well, he did.
gone.
I mean, he's still gonna make like all that money just sitting on the couch.
Yeah,
sign me up for that.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's amazing when they fire these coach with like, oh, you still got $16 million left in your deal. Well, I know you're losing, but just see it out for the rest of the season or something. I mean, it can't be. Everybody has stints of bad. If it's that bad, or I have no idea what goes on in the locker rooms, but
They originally had signed him to a 7-year deal, and it was like the moment it came out, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I get, oh, maybe you have the next, big coach, but it's like to your point, if you are wrong, you can't just like when you hop off, that's a real expensive hop off that ride, to where it's like, okay, you would have signed him for 3 years, you would have known, hey, he's not the coach, and you would have saved yourself what I think they said like 60 million or something like that. They still owe him or something like that.
yeah, overpay a guy for 2 or 3 years and say, hey, we want you here. We're gonna give you tons of money, and it'll be even bigger contract if you win with us. You show us the future. But to give someone those long deals, I mean, it just really doesn't make sense in that financial world of because this is a business in reality. I learned the hard way. I don't have a favorite team anymore. That's why fantasy football has become so much more of my favorite thing to do, because I grew up watching Dan Marino on the same team and Joe Montana on the same team, and Roger Craig, and you name it. Like I watch all these players, and now it's like 3 years is the average life for these guys before they go get a contract somewhere else. And the coach is gone, or the teams change colors or cities or whatever. So it's I was always a Dolphins fan because of Dan Marino, and the Bears are my second favorite. They're my favorite team in the NFC, and if that makes sense. But Now Dan Marino's gone, and I hate the Dolphins now. I'm like, shit. What do I? Not my kids like the Dolphins. I got stuck liking the Dolphins, and my kids like them. And I want to be Bill's Mafia. If I would have joined Bill's Mafia when I was like 7 years old, I would have had a time of my life so far. And I'm
Oh
stuck
my gosh.
rooting for the Dolphins. I could have been
Yeah.
jumping on tables and shit for the last 25 years.
It
I
sounds
tell
like
people,
yeah.
I always tell people the story. I was a Bengals and a Steelers fan when I was a kid for no reason other than my cousin liked the Steelers, and I was a big Ickey Woods fan when I was little, and I got to the age where I was like,
Yankee
oh,
shuffle.
they're in the same division. Like I can't like both these teams. I gotta pick one, and luckily I picked the Steelers and had a lot of years of success and great times. Or if I could have stuck with the Bengals, I would have been miserable until basically this last year. So I kind of looked out on that one. So I know how John kind of feels about picking a random team and then kind of either you get lucky with it or you don't sometimes.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
a Eagles fan because the Cardinals sucked growing up. I was still a Cardinals fan, but I was like, okay, I got to have a winning team. I love Donovan McNabb, so a big Eagles fan. And I'll tell you what, it came in handy because I went to the game this past Sunday, Eagles versus Cardinals, and you can't really get shit talked on you. Even like I was in a Cardinal, I'm rooting for the Cardinals at heart, but you're not gonna get shit talked when you're like, oh, Eagles are my second favorite team. So all right, what like I'm happy both these teams. I'm just here enjoying the game.
That's funny. I played head-to-head versus Simeon Rice when I was in high school, and the backup quarterback for the same team, which is Mount Carmel, the backup quarterback was Donovan McNabb. You know, it was like the team
Oh
was absolutely fantastic. They had like Chris Callaway come through the school. They had I don't know how many guys from the NFL had gone through Mount Carmel in Chicago.
yeah,
It's a powerhouse around here. You know, they won 4 straight state championships. We went. I mean, we were a really good team. Made the state playoffs every year, a couple rounds in, and we didn't score 1 point against them in 4 years. That's how good they were. So
wow.
yeah, they suck.
Yeah, I'm an old school Donovan McNabb fan. I'm a big Syracuse fan.
Nice.
Got my master's from there, and Marvin Harrison is my other favorite player. So that's I always tell people the same way. I'm a Colts fan now. I've had season tickets for about 15 years, but I originally became a Colts fan because Marvin Harrison was my guy. So I love Donovan McNabb, Marvin Harrison at Syracuse. So I know how that goes. So that I'm kind of that way too. These guys I love in college kind of carry over to me in the pros, and I can't stop rooting for them.
I got in my first campus Canton League this year, and I kind of hope that I'm able to get back in the college thing because I think, like I was telling Jeff Bell the other day, we were talking about some players in college and how good they were. And I remember Vince Young beating USC, and I'm like, this
Oh,
guy is going to be the best thing that ever happened in the NFL. I've seen Randall Cunningham, I've seen a couple other quarterbacks that run, Steve Young, guys like that move, and I'm like, this guy is going to change the NFL, and he just sucked. And he's like, well, it might have been a system. It might have been so
yeah.
and so. It might have, that's fine. It is what it is. But I mean, a good player sometimes could overcome those systems, and the guys just didn't
I
pan out. And then I
I think
realized that,
that's a lot harder than we like. I think it's a lot easier said than done with some of these players, especially. I think back because they were talking about case in point, Reddick for the Eagles on the Eagles D line. We drafted him and he was supposed to be phenomenal, right? Couldn't find a space. Couldn't find a space. Jones goes out with an injury. Reddick goes to the coaching staff, says, hey, I'm pretty sure that I'll be really good at D end. If you put me there, I can actually like become. And then he said it in like an interview. He said like that was the only way I knew I would be able to save my career was either I moved to D end or I was not going to be a football player. And he moves to D end, and then all of a sudden now he's gotten paid, and then he just got a mega contract from the Eagles for like 3 years or something like that. But he's killing it. He's got a bunch of sacks. So it's so big and so important that where these guys, that's why I don't really like to say what my rankings are for certain rookies until I know their landing spots, because the landing spots and the coaching will tell me a lot more about the player than, me watching a combine of them running around in their underwear. You know what I mean? Even though they make some nice plays and they look fast, but
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'd love to do a pre-draft ranking and a post-draft ranking because for me, it makes a big difference. Guys go way up or way down depending on what team they end up on, either the culture, the playing time, the spot opportunity. And you've seen it where guys just, I mean, I think you could go back time and time again, look at guys, their landing spot on their drafts. If they ended up on another team, maybe their career ends up a totally different way. And you saw other guys are, man, guys weren't maybe highly rated. They ended up on the right team in the right
mhm.
situation, and bam, they end up having a great career because of it. So I
Yep.
think that landing spot and the coaching staff and what team they're on, it I think it's underrated how much people don't look at that, and as far as you're looking at future success for a player.
Yep. I mean,
Yeah,
I think a perfect case in point. Sorry, John, to cut you off, but I think a perfect case in point that I just love as an example is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, it could be a guy named Joe Schmo, and if they draft him in the 4th round, I'm interested because the Pittsburgh Steelers know how to draft wide receivers, and so that's what any of them. And you just tend to find these coaching staffs that know how to pick certain players, or vice versa, don't know how. Steve Keim and any wide receiver. But you know what I mean? Like, that helps guide where those final rankings go for me for these rookies.
Yeah, the Packers with quarterbacks and the Steelers with receivers. Yeah, it's some people just have a niche.
Yep.
So we got a Baker Mayfield with a high ankle sprain. He might be out for a couple weeks. That might be a blessing in disguise for them. Tua's still not ready for action. We had a couple of bad concussion situations there. I think they're going to be really cautious about this. I'm not seeing him be back on the field for a while. Probably at least a couple more games, I would think. I don't think they're going to rush him back in, especially because I think the frequency of what he had and how bad they looked. If something else happens again, like what happened to Teddy, just the other day too. They don't want any more chances.
Is there an over/under in Vegas for Dolphins quarterback concussion? Because
well, the crazy thing was they said they went through and tested Teddy Bridgewater even after the hard hit, everything else. They said they tested him and he tested totally normal on everything, but because of everyone freaking out about the Tua situation, they basically said, "Hey, you can't go back in." And so this is going to be, I think, something that we're going to need to watch moving forward the rest of the season and possibly for the future. It used to be a guy got a big hit. As long as he tested well in the next day or two, he was good to go. It's looking like they're pushing hard. If a guy gets any type of look like he's got a concussion, that they're going to have to sit at least a week and maybe 2. So, I mean, I'm looking at my lineups. Anybody that says concussion, I'm like, get them out immediately, just because I think that's what we're going to start seeing is a future where they're going to say, hey, you got to have at least a week out and maybe 2 to make sure they don't have these repeat injuries. So I can see the league kind of pushing that way, and that's why I think you're right, John. Tua could be a while. The same thing I think with the fair move from the Steelers. He just got one. I'm already making plans. I've been picking up a backup tight end, and every week I don't have a second tight end in, and because I'm expecting him to be a guy that they say, hey, you're out the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, I mean, you saw this weekend on all the kind of phantom roughing the passing on the quarterback. They're really going to try to protect the quarterback a little more, especially from any kind of anything. The Tom Brady stuff and the who was the other one that the Chiefs who did the Chiefs play? Just
Carr, Derek Carr,
Derek
sack and fumble. Yeah,
that was crap. He grabs the ball.
Terrible
He braced himself with the opposite hand. Why he recovered the fumble with his right hand, and they still called roughing the passer. It was absolutely. We were sitting in the garage of my neighbor's house, like, you got to be kidding me, man! This is absolute crap.
That was a horrible call.
Yeah. So injuries. Russell Wilson's feelings got hurt, and he's blaming it on his shoulder now. So I don't know what happens there, but I think he's in for a rude awakening unless he really improves. He had a good defense and a great running game for a while to kind of hide his flaws, but I think now that they expect him to come in and be a real good quarterback, and it's not panning out. I hope things change, and I hope it's just an injury a little bit that he can work through, but. I just don't see a lot of people have already called like he's a flawed quarterback in the past, and I think it's coming to the light right now.
So there's a couple of things here. I do agree that he just looked pretty terrible. Like, he's looked terrible, god awful. Like, it's looking like Pete Carroll might have done a bigger steal than actually Steve Keim, pulling a trade for Hopkins for David Johnson. But what I will say is, what we do know, like, history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes, right? Russell Wilson has always been either a first half quarterback or a second half quarterback. You could go through every single year of his that he's been a quarterback, even with Seattle. He will disappear and be a fall off the face, the 25 to 30 range quarterback for 8 weeks of the season. And then he just flips the switch. And then all of a sudden he's a, quarterback 1 through the second half of the season. He's done it multiple times where, it's been these past few years where it has been that second half. And then here's where I think and why I do think, and I'm kind of like, actually go and buy these players right now, like a Sutton or a Judy, right now in shoot, because their schedule opens up massively. And he has had one good game this season, and it was against a terrible passing offense or pass defense. And then he's going to see a much more of that moving forward. So I do, including the fantasy playoffs. So I do think that if Russell does end up falling to the waiver wire, I would scoop him up, because I do think that he can turn it around with their schedule coming up.
Yeah, I hope he does. I don't like to see these guys fail.
I understand there's like a 20% like excitement level there, because most people are like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of them on national TV, but I'm telling you, if you look at the data, and this is just par course for Russell Wilson.
I guess this is where the analytics come in, because I've seen Russ do things before, like hold the ball too long, he gets sacked and things like that. His passes are just errant, like not even close to where the target is at. That's the only thing I've seen different than what he's doing now compared to before.
Well, it feels like him and his wide receivers just aren't on the same page. So I know we all think this is a Madden game where you just trade a player and he fits right into the system and everything's just smooth as can be. And a lot of times we just overlook that transition of getting new guys, new teammates. Hey, I like to call stuff this way. When I say this, I want you to run this route, and it doesn't always work with everybody. And that's the biggest thing I've noticed. Yeah, he's throwing a lot of overthrows, a lot of bad plays, but it just feels like him and his wide receivers are absolutely not on the same page. Whenever he wants to call an audible, they don't look like they're running the same thing. And I think that's the big thing. I think you're right, if they can get that figured out over the next couple of weeks, man, maybe we see that MVP Russ that you said you've seen half of his career, half of the season every year, where he does look like the MVP.
Because look at this down the stretch right here. Week 12, Carolina, or I'll start in week 11. Week 11, Vegas Raiders. Their DBs are bad. Carolina in week 12, Baltimore, week 13. Week 14 is Kansas City. Week 15, Arizona, Rams in week 16, and then Kansas City again in week 17. So it's a lot of high scoring potential. Again, they haven't been really scoring any fantasy points or any touchdowns to this point. But I do like JT said, I do think that you give them just a little bit more time. It is a new system. We don't even know if Hackett could be the problem for all we know. But yeah, I do think there could be better days ahead for Russell.
Yeah, I did see. If you watched the game last night, I seen like MVS and Juju we're just having a hard time being on the same page with Mahomes. Like the ball was, it just looked awkward. Them trying to be in the right place. Like the routes weren't the same they usually the routes aren't the same as they usually run, and the ball was not in the place where the old quarterback used to throw it. They're looking for the ball somewhere else, kind of thing. It caught them off guard when you're running. So I hope that's the problem too. I don't ever want to see anybody fail in this league. So I get it, but. Moving on, Rashard Penny broken ankle. He's gone out for this. It's Ken Walker season now. Damian Harris hamstring strain out a couple weeks. Ramondre Stevenson should get the bulk of the carries going forward for a couple weeks anyway. And hamstrings are funny. It might not be only a week or 2 week thing. With these big running backs with these huge thighs, you never know.
Hamstrings are the worst too, because like you said, you think it's good, then you start warming it up, and then you're thinking you're 100, so you're giving it 100%, and then it goes and it's back to square one, if not worse than before. So yeah, hamstrings are pretty bad.
The only thing they got going for them now is it's still like summertime-ish and it's warm and they can really stretch outside and get a lot of fluids in them. When it's cold outside, it seems like those kind of things linger, So, Saquon Barkley landed on his shoulder AC joint. It's a pain tolerance thing more than anything. So it could be a week, could be a couple weeks, but it's we'll see what happens there. James Conner ribs. JT, we talked about this before multiple times with people with ribs about how bad it is you can't laugh, you can't breathe, you can't cough, you can't sleep, you can't do anything when you got bad ribs. So they might sit him out for a week. Chris Olave concussions. That was a pretty bad concussion. He landed pretty funny. So they might, as we talked about before, concussion protocol stuff, they might give him a little more time to recover, especially with a situation like that. T. Higgins sprained ankle. Hopefully that's something that he can recover from. I didn't hear high ankle sprain. I just heard like a tweak. So
yeah, it was kind of odd because he like started the game. And there was some reports that he had kind of tweaked the ankle during practice. Then he gave it a go, and then I guess he just made a cut and it didn't feel right, he said, so he pulled himself. So we'll see.
Yeah, that one buried a lot of people with the non-injury report on him, and then everybody played him, and he only played a couple plays. He got me in one league really bad, and I know a couple other players that took some hits on some wins that he got 0 points for them on that as well.
I love these players that piss people off, because the next day I send 1 million trade offers to every player that has, like, every team that has those people.
That's smart.
Just in case. Every week,
Yeah, that's smart.
I literally
they just want to rage quit them.
Yeah,
yeah, dude. I like that idea. That's good. I might steal that.
T. Higgins is kind of an elite receiver, so it really doesn't work with guys like that, But a little bit further down the line, when somebody does something like if you watched the game last night and you were probably livid, like I was livid at Juju about dropping passes, and he didn't get a lot of pass interference calls that he should have gotten stuff. But I expect Juju to be so much more in sync with Mahomes by now at this point in the season. And it's just kind of not panning out. And I trade a lot to get Juju in leagues I didn't already have him on. So he's testing my patience. But some other guys, the Rondell Moore owners and stuff like that, who anticipated big weeks out, their big years out of him this year, and he's been hurt and came back, did okay, and then it's back to nothing again. Those kind of guys, go fishing, man. Put that pole out there, put the big fat worm on there, and see what you can get.
Yeah,
that's what you got to do.
See, John, I'm a double downer, so I already have a ton of Juju. So I might do what you said and go out there and start asking for Juju trades all over this week and see if I can get the rest of my teams to get Juju. I can't quit Juju. I love him. I think at some point he's got to click with this offense. I still think he could end up being the main man outside of Kelsey. So I know he's got a lot of upside. There was some frustrating drops last night and some plays they just missed, but I still love the upside of Juju. And like I said, I always tell people I just can't help myself. I tend to be a double down guy. Instead of quitting somebody, I'm like, no, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to get more of them. So I like your idea. I might go out and put a bunch of Juju trades out there this week.
I do that all the time, and I usually get the guys that never pan out. So that's kind of my biggest thing. So, Pat Freiermuth concussion, like you mentioned before, JT. Dalton Schultz, Cowboys, same knee. We really don't know a lot about it right now. If it's just kind of a little strain, or kind of a maintenance thing, or hopefully it's nothing serious. Darren Waller started the game. Another guy that pissed people off. He's been hurt a lot, and then he gets in the game, plays like 5 or 6 snaps, and then leaves with a hammy. He's got a lot of recurring injuries, so hopefully this is something that isn't too bad. But any other injuries that I missed, or any other comments about the things that I mentioned?
John, let's real quick discuss this strategy. Now, back in the day, I felt like always want to have that Monday night play. You always want that last guy to get you a big play, a big chance at the win. I feel after COVID and after all the injury things that have happened lately, I feel myself swinging the complete opposite direction, where I don't want to wait till Monday on anybody in case they do get hurt or things happen. You love to have that last second big score to win, but I found myself more and more playing the guys on Thursday night and earlier in the week just to make sure I have a play, just to make sure I don't have a guy that's going to be hurt or a guy that's on the injury report and it ends up being worse than they said. I don't know if it's me just getting old and I'm getting nervous now compared to when I was younger, but I tell you what, I find myself looking at it every week and I'm like, do I play this guy that plays early just in case? What do you guys think?
I hate the Thursday night, and I hate the Sunday night or the Monday night games to have anybody. I like everything going on Sunday where I can sit around and relax and drink and watch Red Zone and not know like the intent. Like when I watched the game last night, I was so effing pissed about it. I'm like, catch the damn ball! What? He's right there. He's wide open. Like I just want to watch the Red Zone, drink 37,000 beers, eat wings and shrimp, and have a good time with my buddies. That kind of stuff. Like I like doing it. I get stressed out on the Thursday and Monday night games. And I find out that on Thursday, when I have a guy that has an awesome game on a Thursday, I'm like, I'm up 72-0 on one guy. It's in the bag. And then I just watch my team.
And you lose. And you lose. Yeah,
and
it's the curse, the Thursday curse. You can start a player on Thursday, does terrible. Like case in point, me, I got a little thirsty Thursday in me, put in, Russell Wilson, Broncos country, let's ride with Cortland Sutton, and did not look good after Thursday night. I thought I lost. I was like, I'm not even going to look at this. Like I said, went to the Cardinals game. my buddy texted me and he's like, bro, you're up right now. Like your team went off. And it was just like everyone in, I had Justin Jefferson, Saquon, things like that. So yeah, I do get a little bit more of like, I just like watching my players. So that's where I do like playing. I'll get a little bit thirsty on Thursday. Although I am a little bit more afraid of the Thursday night game than the Monday night game. Although during COVID, I will tell you, JT, that was definitely my thought process is like, hey, let's just get these players in here so I know I can at least share the points. But yeah, that is a little bit interesting. I didn't really think about even now kind of thinking about those options. So you definitely made me think about something, JT.
If I ever go to a football game, it's going to be a Thursday or a Monday night game. There's only one game going on. I don't go on Sundays. I'd rather just watch the Red Zone and have a good time with my buddies and drink beers, drink, a 12 pack of High Life. Like my wife says, High Life for the low life. It's $12.99 or $4.99 for a 12 pack of High Life. So I sit in the garage, order some stuff. It's a nice cheap day. You have a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. I mean, it's $8.90 or $8.75 for a beer at the 11.75 for a beer.
Yeah, 11.75, something like that.
It's just like it's not even fun. Tailgating's great, but
you got to tailgate. We tailgated, so it made for a lot of fun. See, that was the thing. I gave myself, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to get on social media. Like I said, it made it easier, and I have that Russell Wilson Sutton stack in a bunch of leagues. So when that just kind of tanked, it kind of just was like, all right, I could just enjoy the tailgate and go to the game. And so that did make it nice, but it was finding out all the information and like all the injuries and stuff. That was a bit wild at the end of the day.
Yeah, in the past I've been on like I for whatever reason when Fishbowl was on MFL and I was on Yahoo for this charity league and I was on Sleeper for these leagues and ESPN for that one and Yahoo for the neighborhood league and I'm trying to go to a Bears game or something like that with terrible service and trying to get you got to sign back into each individual app like son of a you're just driving yourself nuts.
Then you click on it and then it subs out the wrong person. You're like, I didn't even want that guy. I was trying to move him to the bench.
It didn't save and I'm like, I have not set a lineup in like 17 years and of course now. Week 3, I'm at the Bears game. If something happens where I got 3 guys sitting on the bench, I mean, come on, man. I would see everybody's like, yeah, go pound sand, buddy. You got a 0 from 3 these 3 guys, So
I've had to learn that. I was going to say, I have to learn that lesson on my way to Colts games is there's a little dead zone between Illinois and Indiana, and I've gotten burned putting in my lineups where they didn't go through or a change in lineup didn't go through. I was driving through that kind of dead zone. So I've learned I got to get the lineup in before I get to the border. If I don't get the lineup in before I get to the border, I'm in trouble. And if I do, then I got to check my lineup the second I park my car. I got to get it in before I head to the bar and before I head into the game because the second you get close to the stadium, if you're within a half a mile of the stadium, you get no service because everybody's out there on their cell phone. So I've had to learn a couple of hard lessons where I've lost, where I didn't get the changes in, or I saw an injury and I went to replace a guy and it didn't go through. So I had to kind of work on my game there for my pre-game setup on Sundays where I'm actually at the NFL games.
Setting 19 lineups, that individual lineups, while I'm at a game and I had no service on like 16 different like apps was absolutely stressful with COVID last couple of years. It's been terrible. So it's rough.
When one single app comes out, when they can figure out like some kind of mutual agreement, and you're able to manage a bunch of rosters all on one app, that app is going to change some lives.
I do everything on Sleeper now, so I do everything on
Sleeper. Yeah, that's why I try get everyone onto one Sleeper. Yeah, 100%.
When Scott Fish said he's going to do the Fishbowl on Sleeper this year, I was like, yes, this is the best thing ever. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, I'm on Sleeper and MFL for a bunch of my leagues. I'm good with those two. If I can just get those last 2 or 3 leagues off of ESPN and off of Yahoo, I will be a happy man.
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go some current events and player news here. So I'm going to go team by team. You guys can alternate from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, back and forth. JT, we'll start with the local homegrown Chicago Bears here. Justin Fields making progress, and this is something that I don't care. I want the Bears to lose. I want them to lose every game. I want them to have a good draft pick and get, they need to rebuild. They're obviously in a rebuild. Get rid of everything. Keep Justin Fields. Get offensive line, get defense, get receivers, get free agents. You got tons of money and draft picks coming in. But watching Justin Fields make some progress. How did you think about the Bears game this weekend?
Yeah, I thought it was the best he's looked. I think it's one of those things where as a Bears fan, and all my friends are Bears fans. All my friends are Bear fans. So the thing is, you just want to see that there's some upside, that they're progressing. I don't think anybody expects to go out there and win all these games and do all stuff. But as long as they're seeing progression, they're seeing that like, hey, we can throw the football at least more than 5 times a game. I think that's what people want to see. So, I mean, I've had Fields on my bench in every league for the last 3 or 4 weeks because I just can't play him. Of course, this is the week I don't play him, and Trevor Lawrence scores me negative points. So, you can't win in that situation. But I think the Bears, that's what it is. And I think as someone who can relate as a Steelers fan at this point, you just want to see the young quarterback show some improvement, get the ball to the wideouts. You know we're going to not score the touchdown. You know we're going to get inside the 10 and blow it. That's what bad teams do when it happens. But you want to at least see him get down there. You want to at least get the ball to Mooney. You want to make sure it doesn't just disappear. And I think if you were a Bears fan, at least this week, you're like, hey, we showed some fight. We were in the game. Fields looked pretty decent. He started spreading the ball around. And the one thing you can say about the Bears is, for how bad everyone's talking about their offensive line, they've run the ball pretty well this year. So well. Herbert's been good. Monty, I was on the fence on Monty with the injury. I played him about half the leagues I had him in, and then I kicked myself for not believing him anymore and not playing him in every league. But I think that's what if you're a Bears fan, that's what you want. Hey, we'll take the losses. We'll get the better draft picks. You just got to hope we don't screw up our draft picks, but you just got to see that progress. You don't want to go into the end of the season going, man, is Justin Fields the guy? You want to go next year, okay, Fields is ready to break out. That's what you want to have that feeling like, hey, he's made those 2 years. He's had the time to get used to the new system. And, hey, man, we're going into year 3 ready for him to have that bust-out season.
I just wish they would Go ahead.
Sorry, John. They need to do, to JT's point, what they did, what the Eagles did with Hurts, and just, okay, this is our guy. Let's surround him with a bunch of talent, and he's going to be our guy. And you see what it's doing for the Eagles, and Justin Fields, I believe, can be on that same path as well, because he has the talent. It is just the lack of weapons. And, it's nice seeing that, he's continuing to get better and better in the system. And I think that's going to continue as his schedule opens up a little bit more too.
As a Bears fan, I just wish they would have got offensive linemen and DBs and linebackers or just some trench nose tackles, things like that. And then have a really terrible year. And then there's so many good quarterbacks coming out of the draft next year that you could have walked right into.
You don't believe in Fields? You don't believe in Fields?
I'm not a humongous. I'm not an Ohio State guy. I don't believe in Fields. I don't think he's. I love his running ability. I love that he's so tough. I love everything about him. But some of the throws he makes, some of them are like, oh my God, I can't believe it was amazing. And a lot of those things have to do with very acrobatic catches these receivers are making. Like some of them catches the receivers are making Justin Fields look good. It's not like he's putting the ball on it, but he is putting the ball right in that breadbasket a couple times. On the run, he does. There's flashes. I'll give him that much.
This is the system. This is the system that he needs to run. West Coast offense is the perfect offense for him. Which is, I was so nervous that the San Francisco 49ers were going to do the right thing and actually draft Justin Fields when they traded up for him instead of going with who they went with, and with Trey Lance, because Fields is a guy that with this system, the way you can stretch it, he can make plays. And to your point, he's going to have some accuracy issues right now as he continues to learn the playbook. But I really do think he is the long-term quarterback that the Bears should just commit to.
All right, that's enough time with the Bears. All right, here we go. Johnny, the Bengals. T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, not quite firing all cylinders right now. What's going on with the Cincy offense?
Hungover, dude. They got that Super Bowl hangover. They went on a wild run, expecting it to continue. They really did play really well at the end of last season. We have to really give our hats and be like, hey, they did pull off some pretty lucky victories as well. I think the other big thing is that we're not seeing, which is the big part why I was not sold on drafting Jamar Chase in the first round and going for T. Higgins instead in the third round, because these receivers are a lot more closer in talent than people were giving them credit for. And what you're seeing is teams are dropping back more. They're not allowing the big plays. You're not seeing the Jamar Chase, 50 plus yard touchdowns every single week like you were seeing last year. Teams are really respecting it. Now, I will say it doesn't help when T. Higgins has been out of the lineup for what feels like 2 out of the 4 games so far. But I do think T. Higgins is, continues to be a really solid play. I think he is a lock to be a top 12 wide receiver. And I think that Jamar Chase is a bit of a buy low right now. But just know you're not going to get as many of those, 60-yard receiving touchdowns as you saw last year.
I think a lot of teams realize that Burrow holds on to the ball too long, and they're taking advantage of that situation. They found the chink in the armor from this offense, and they're exploiting it now. So,
yep. That well.
JT, Bills, Josh Allen, 424-4. Khalil Shakir is the future at the slot, I believe. Gabe Davis, boomer bust guy. What do you think about the Bills' offense here?
Well, the Bills' offense is already great. Now just play the Steelers every week. Yeah, I mean you're fantastic. So I mean, as a Steelers fan, the first 5 minutes I was like, okay, I'm getting a little hyped. I was like, we're staying in this game. We're playing bad, but we're close. And then the blowout happened. That deep down everyone knew was coming. This Bills team, they were my pick to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. I still think they're the pick to win the Super Bowl. They're a team. I mean, look at all the injuries on defense, and that defense is still playing great. So if they can get healthy on defense, Josh Allen he's in that prime right now. He is just playing amazing. And then everybody around us, he's making Gabe Davis. I'm not a huge Gabe Davis guy. I've been saying that all offseason, but man, he's making Gabe Davis look awesome. He's making Shakur look pretty good. And I think their running game, while not fantastic, I do like Singletary. I like Cook. I think they fit their system. I don't think they need a stud going out there pounding the ball 20 times a game. So I like what those guys bring. And right now I just feel like they feel like the best mix of a team in the NFL overall, but also fantasy wise, they just feel like a surefire play on offense every week. I mean, I won a league that's a pretty low scoring league outside of QB, and Josh Allen put a 52 for me this week. I'm loving it. So I mean, Josh Allen. I mean, I just think right now the Bills are the play. I mean, Josh Allen, Diggs. I mean, if Shakur, like you said, if he ends up sliding into that slot position, I mean, I love him as a possible play in deeper leagues where you got 3, 4, 5 flex spots. I mean, I love adding him to that mix.
Yep.
I just think he's a guy. I mean, I know people talked up Jamison Crowder coming in the year. I think we're already seeing that's kind of going by the wayside. I don't see him being in the mix most of the year. So I do like to see Shakur. If you could get him, possibly pretty cheap from someone, I mean, he's a guy I would definitely, especially in Dynasty, he's a definite hold for me, a guy that I think has a chance, maybe back end of this year, but definitely next year has a shot to really add some to that offense. And I don't think that's offense, unlike the Bengals, which I'm on record saying I felt like the Bengals were going to take a step back because everything hit right for them at the end of the year last year. I just felt like they were due for a step back. I don't feel like this Bills offense is looking like that at all. I mean, I feel like these guys could roll against anyone. And so I really they're my guys right now. I mean, if you got their players, you feel great if you have any of their guys in your lineup.
So where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's rumors of Christian McCaffrey coming there to beat him out of the backfield. I mean, that would just be illegal if he showed up on that team. I mean, he just hit screen passes out of the backfield.
Yeah, that's you're just like, what? That if and I used to get a lot more into just like team play, but playing fantasy, you're like, oh, I kind of want to see that. That would be real interesting. But yeah, it's like you're like, how is this even possible? How do they get? This is a cheat code. Like that would be completely unstoppable.
If CMC ends up on the Bills, I am going to be a sleeper Bills fan for sure.
I'm just
I'll be rooting for the Bills left and right. I love CMC already, but man, if he ended up on the Bills, it would be.
I'm just going to throw all my Dolphin shit in the fire and just get all Bill stuff and call it a day. It's like that point in time, I was like, I don't care if you call me a fair weather, whatever. I'm it.
John's jumping on fanatics.com. He's just ordering everything up. He's like, boom, 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 boom.
Give me all your 4 extra large shit, please. Yes, thank you. All right, Johnny, Broncos. They look like crap. We already kind of touched on this a little bit. Elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you're just seeing them. There's not a lot of continuity there right now, and then there is questioning on the play calling as well, and then also Russell Wilson dealing with the shoulder issue. So I do think that there are better days ahead, though, for Russell Wilson and this offense as they continue to kind of figure things out. And that division, like I said, that division is going to continue to put up a lot of points. I also think you also look at like Melvin Gordon can't hang on to the ball. They bring in Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray could probably end up being like the lead kind of guy, the 1A. And so you can't imagine like they're going to lean on that running game very often. And so you're going to see Russell Wilson continue to put up points. In my opinion, as this schedule opens up and they actually have to get in more shootouts and whatnot, and then he continues to progress with the playbook.
I hope so. JT, the Browns, Nick Chubb is just an animal. 17, 134 and 2. I traded him away last year figuring that like I better get another guy. This is my favorite hobby in fantasy football is to trade guys away before they go nuts the following year.
Yeah.
And he's just the absolute animal right now. And he's always been a guy who's been a lot of yards, not that much touchdowns, but last year kind of changed a little bit, and already at the beginning of this year, he is just he's a touchdown machine. So tell me about the Browns a little bit.
Yeah, he's a beast. I honestly, I'm a little upset at myself. I had a chance in my big money dynasty league to go get him a couple weeks ago. I got a buddy that has him and he's rebuilding. And now he's like still selling them, but now he wants even more for him. And I'm like, I should have jumped on a little earlier because now I'm like, I don't know how much I want to give up for him, even though he's an absolute stud. And I'm in win now. I'm like, can I give up another first rounder? Because I've already traded a bunch of my guys away to try to win this year. With I made a big move for Cooper Cup and a move for CMC.
Ooh, nice.
So,
Nice.
but man, Nick Chubb, he's just one of those guys. He's like everybody always talks. Oh, he doesn't catch passes. Oh, he's not that good at PPR. Well, dude, the guy just gets carries and scores. I mean, I got Kareem Hunt in a couple leagues, and at this point, I feel good about playing Kareem Hunt. So I'm like, he's gonna even as the number 2, he's scoring equally to what some number 1s are on a lot of teams. But I tell you what, as a Steelers fan, like I said, I hate this Browns team all the time. I want them to always lose, but man, they are actually way better than I thought they would be. And it goes back to my years talking about the Colts with Jacoby Brissett. I said he never got a fair shake there. I actually said he could be a way better quarterback than people gave him credit for. And he actually played really well for the Colts until he got hurt that one year. And then he kind of just didn't have it after he came back from the knee injury. And for him, I'm really glad to see him playing as well as he is because I thought he never got a fair shake as a starting QB. And obviously we know he's not going to get one at the end of the season when Deshaun Watson comes back. But man, he's balling out for that team. They played way better than I thought they would. And he's making everybody else around him fairly relevant actually in fantasy wise, where I thought Chubb would basically be the only playable guy on this offense.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb is an absolute animal. Like he has never in his entire career finished with under 5 yards per carry. Like that's what I taught. Like, you know, and to JT's point, like people always, oh, it's PPR and he doesn't score. I'm like, first off, he gets over 30 receptions every year. Like, what do you want? Like, he's not Saquon where he's going to get 80 targets or 100 targets. And the second thing is like, he just is he's the best running back. We had Hugh Jackson on our show a couple of years ago, and I shared because I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. I was like, what is stopping Nick Chubb from being the number 1 overall running back in the entire league? Because he's talented enough. And he's like, literally just them not giving him the ball enough. Like, he's like, you're right. He has all the fundamentals. He is a phenomenal football player. He just doesn't get the ball enough. And I think you're seeing that. That leads me to what I want to follow up here, though, with the question. Because I've been kind of thinking about this. And Justin, I would like to ask you if you don't mind, because you seem to be pretty close with this. Would you, because he has been so funny, he's the number 1 running back right now, number 2 in PPR. He's been phenomenal because, you know, in part because Brissett is the quarterback. They're not going to trust him to, you know, drop back and throw a bunch. When Deshaun comes back, are you concerned that Nick Chubb's, you know, touchdown production and the amount of carries is going to go down? And so would you maybe consider trying to get just this major haul right before a playoff push for him? Or do you think it's just going to continue because we don't necessarily know what Deshaun Watson can do when he comes back, if he actually or is going to throw the rock a bunch, and if he's still good?
Yeah, that's a great question. To me, it goes down to coaching. If I'm coaching, I'm saying, hey, Deshaun, this is what's working for us. You've seen what's been working for us. We want you to come in and fit the system and do that. But, we think we could stretch the ball a little bit more down the field with you, but we got to lean on this running game. My worry is if you look at the history of Deshaun Watson, he's never been on a team that they've run the ball very much.
Right.
And he's kind of always been the guy that throws the ball. And they've almost gone that old school Colt style with Peyton Manning where, hey, we throw, and then we run at the end of the game once we're winning by a bunch.
Right.
And so that is going to be a mindset of Deshaun versus the coaching. Can Deshaun come in and go, okay, you're right. We are crushing with that. We are pounding the rock. Let's stick with that. Or Deshaun go, I got to come in and prove something. I got to show everybody I'm worth the money. And he wants to come in, start changing plays, throwing the ball left and right. And all of a sudden you're like, where did Nick Chubb go? I think it's a great question because I think we're going to see one of those two things happen. And the question is which one it's going to be. You got a new coach in there. How much, pull does he have? If it was a Bill Belichick, a Mike Tomlin, I think you say, okay, they're going to stick with the system they've been running because those guys know what they want to do. You're a younger coach. You got the most expensive player in the league coming back, trying to prove himself that he's worth it. It's a scary situation to me if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. You're hyped now because you're playing pretty well, but to me, it's a iffy situation. It's not Deshaun comes back and all of a sudden we're 10 times better. Right. I think it's something going to be. I think we're going to have to watch this year and see what happens. But yeah, if I'm a Chubb owner and don't think I'm going to win this year, I am pushing hard to get a sale right now. I'm going to get him at top dollar before the possible drop off before Watson comes back. So yeah, I'm a sell, and I'm selling now or in the next week or two if I have Chubb. That's why I said I'm on the other side. I really wish I would have bought 2 weeks ago. Because now if I do want to buy, I know I'm on that high end, and I'm going to have to pay up for him.
I've been buying David Bell everywhere I possibly can right now while he's hurt and I got off the radar. I just think that the play action game is going to open up so much. They're going to run the ball a lot, and it's going to be the Deshaun Watson play action game. And I just can't wait to see what he does with Amari Cooper and David Bell. And Peoples Jones getting over a lot too. He's getting a lot of targets already. He's kind of a boomer bust guy for me, but I mean to get Njoku and David Bell involved in this offense more than Njoku more than he already is. I just think they're going to be wide open. You're going to have you can't cover the run like that and cover. Everybody's going to be in man coverage on these receivers. And David Bell's a very good receiver, and I think he's very underrated. And when he gets back healthy, and that's a great combination, I feel. So, whose turn is it now? I don't know who started that question, but I'll go Johnny. Buccaneers. Fournette is just making things happen. And is Cade Otton the guy now? Are they going to start moving forward with Cade Otton because of injuries and just some kind of continuity on the offense?
Yeah, I do think that Otton is interesting, especially Brady using the tight end a whole lot, and he was kind of touted. People were, I got a hand off to fantasy football community. They were kind of on this one a little bit before, and saying that he could have the chance for this offense. So you always like, when Tom Brady is the quarterback. And yeah, like you said, Fournette, it's just, we doubt him, and he just produces. And as long as he's healthy, you're putting him in your lineup. He's almost like, the running back version of Reed, right? Whereas if he's playing, you're putting him in your lineup and he's going to be an RB1 for you.
Yeah, all these guys are coming back now, starting to come back a little bit healthy and off of suspensions. And I think when Julio comes back, he may be like the Rob Gronkowski kind of important type player across the middle. And it's one of those things where I think this offense is going to be maybe even better than last year's offense. When they all hit all cylinders. So,
here's what I understand because where Julio is in his career, kind of wise. But to me, what was they did it once, and they did it on one or two plays in one of the last games where they moved. They actually put Mike Evans in the tight end role, and Evans went up and he got a seam catch, and it was like, oh, this would be interesting if if they put Evans, who's just a little bit more athletic right now, and then had Julio on the outside, who could still, he has wheels, he can still do goes and things like that. But then having a guy like Mike Evans in the middle to really, I don't know, that just seemed real interesting to me. But I'm not an offensive coordinator for the Bucks, so
Yeah, Julio looked really good for like a half a game. You know,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, man, this offense would be awesome if Julio could stay on the field. You know,
Until Tom was like, "Hey, Julio, go deep."
yeah,
Oh, and Julio's like, he's like, "Bro, I don't know. I just got messed." He's like, "Go deep again. I got you."
yeah, and his leg fell off.
Overthrows, and then Julio's just dead. It's like,
Yeah, he just died in the field. Yeah. JT, actually, Johnny, I'll go back to you because we're talking about the Cardinals here. Is this offense about to explode when Hopkins comes back, or is it going to be like a fantasy football nightmare?
uh Hopkins, I wouldn't say it's going to explode. I do think it'll get better. I do think it will make it a little bit easier for us to score in the red area. But right now, Hollywood is taking the Hopkins role and he's getting the same amount of targets, or he's getting those targets. I think that once, Hopkins comes back, it will open up things, and teams will definitely, not be able to focus as much on Hopkins. And it does overall help our team because Hopkins is just that good. Like, he is that guy. But I don't think we're going to all of a sudden get the final key that just like our offensive line is not good, and we're constantly banged up. We just have like a lot of things that are going wrong, where Cliff per se, and I don't think he's a bad offensive coordinator, or head coach. I do think he knows somewhat what he's doing. I just think that, with the hodgepodge of where these wide receivers are right now, with what we're trying to just get through to until Hopkins gets back, I think once we can get Rondale Moore doing more of the slot and actually taking, shots down the field with him, in the middle of the field, getting Hollywood, I think you could end up seeing this offense open up just a little bit more and be more productive, in the scoring realm once Hopkins does come back.
Moore's back in the slot, but he's got those short targets again. It's kind of like,
I
man,
know it's frustrating, but you saw when they targeted him down the field, he had a gusher play. It
right.
went for like 25 or 30 yards. So it's just like, and all of us here are just like, why are you? I understand a guy's fast, and I get it. We get enamored, similarly with like Kadarius Toney, right? We get enamored with speed and like get this guy the ball in space and watch what he could do. All fine and gravy. Do that once or twice a game. The rest of the time, if you want to use that speed, use it vertically. Go down the field and really make the linebackers be punished because they're putting him out there and things like that. And so that's the frustrating thing. Hopefully he gets the picture and he sees that. But yeah, it's definitely frustrating for people like me, who I'm a huge Rondale fan, and seeing that was really frustrating.
Yeah, I traded Rondell away earlier this season for Michael Carter, and I don't
Wow.
know. It was kind of like a 50. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's kind of an even deal for the next
Yeah.
year or so, kind of thing. But we'll see. I'm going to try to maybe if Rondell keeps having bad games or not, I'm going to try and get Rondell Moore back. But a lot of people who like Rondell Moore really don't want to give him up, so it's kind of hard to pry him
Yeah.
away from some people, believers.
Mm-hmm.
JT, I'm going to make you talk about the Colts next, but after the Chiefs. So I'm going to punish you with the Colts commentary. But start off with the Chiefs first of all. Kelsey's a monster. We saw that 4 touchdown game last night. Mahomes is struggling a little bit. MVS, Juju, et cetera, look kind of awkward. We talked about it earlier. The running back room is kind of weird. They can't get any continuity, really. What's the story with this offense?
Yeah, I think something we talked a little bit about with Russell Wilson trying to get on the same page with wide receivers. I think Mahomes is kind of in the same position. Whenever you have a quarterback that makes a lot of plays on his own, that's moving around, that makes kind of crazy throws, you got to have wide receivers that know how to break to where he's going to throw it. And with all these new guys, I think that's been the issue for the Chiefs. I don't think Mahomes is any worse. I think he's good as he's ever been. I think the issue is the different wide receivers. And so I think you saw it with Juju when we talked about where it's just like it seemed like he was looking over one shoulder and Mahomes was throwing it to another spot. And so I think right now it's just those guys trying to figure out, when they look at stuff in the film room, Mahomes pointing out like, hey, I'm seeing this. this is what I need you to do for me. And I think as they get going in the season, I think you're going to see a little bit better with that, with him and MVS and Hardman. Hardman's been there a little while, but trying to get him in there. But I think, used to see it with the Steelers a lot with Ben Roethlisberger. You got to have guys, whenever you have a quarterback that's moving around a lot and extending plays, you got to have guys that are running to the spots that he's looking for. And that's why I think Tyreek Hill was so good on that team. Everybody talks about him just going straight line speed. Well, yeah, I mean, he's the cheetah. He's awesome. But how many huge plays did he make because Mahomes was moving around and he ran to the spot that Mahomes would throw to, where he was running across field, something you'd say, oh, don't ever do that. And he would sprint to an area and Mahomes would just chuck into that area. So I think that's where you're going to see with Mahomes. I think again, I think they're on the rise. I think their offense is going. I mean, I've got Mahomes in a ton of leagues. You obviously are never going to not play him, but I think they're going to get better as the season goes on. Kelsey, a little surprised with a lack of yardage. Obviously, 4 TDs is huge. Every time I see something like that, it just angers me as another fan about how can we never get our studs the ball. And I watch these other games, and Josh Allen can always get Diggs the ball. Mahomes can always get Kelsey the ball when they need it. And I'm like, so it just makes me mad. So I'm like, when that happens, I'm like, is that the offensive coordinator or is it the quarterback? Who is not figuring out how to get your stud the ball? Because everybody knows they're going to get the ball, but that's your job, is to figure out how to get them the ball anyway. And not look away from that guy and throw to your 5th wide receiver because you're like, oh, I'm going to outsmart him. Throw to my 5th guy. They'll never see it coming, which just drives me insane as a fan and just a football analyst at all. Like, the Steelers were kings of that, throwing to Ray McLeod, thinking they were outsmarting everybody. It never worked. So, I mean, this just Chiefs team, I think, they're holding together. I think they're just going to keep improving throughout the year as they get these wide receivers on the same page. I don't love their running back core at all. I'm a CH hater. I always have been. I think he's playing well this year. I just don't love him. If I had him in any league, which I don't, if I had him in any league, I'd be selling like crazy right now. But I don't have him. I actually think Jerick McKinnon's not a bad backup to have. If you're a RB needy team, getting him and stashing him as a possible backup RB2 or a flex play in these bye weeks, I've been looking on my waiver wire, seeing if he's out there, because he looked pretty solid on Monday night. I mean, he made some nice runs. I feel like they trust him just a bit more than Pacheco. They trust him just a little bit more than CEH on some of those runs. So he's a guy I'm grabbing just in case. And he burnt me a couple years ago and cost me a fantasy championship when I didn't pick him up because I was like, I'm not going to play him. And then my opponent picked him up and played him, and he smoked me in the semifinals. So he's a guy I always will never forget that I should have picked him up. But he's a guy definitely. Would I want to play him every week? No. But I think these bye weeks and with all the injuries coming up, he might not be a bad guy to go out there and grab if he's on your waiver wire.
Yeah, Sky Moore's another one that, I mean, most dynasty leagues he's already taken in, but he's on the waiver wire in a lot of redraft leagues. And Juju's on a 1-year deal. He may not be back this year, and they might be. This might be a situation where the second half of the season, if Juju's not panning out, they might just say, "Hey, Sky Moore, here's the keys that you're in. Have at it." So I'd be going after Sky Moore right now if I was in.
If you can get Sky Moore in a dynasty league, he's definitely a go buy because he hasn't put up the numbers. So if you got league mates who haven't really been paying attention, they go in there like, oh, what has Sky Moore done? And he's sitting on their taxi squad. He's maybe a guy you go off. Maybe you can get him in a one-on-one trade. Maybe you can trade him for a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick. But maybe he's a guy I like throwing in if you're trying to make another player trade and adding him to the mix. He's a guy I like throwing in there because, again, I think they're going to start working him in second half of the season. Yeah, you saw it a little bit on Monday night. They threw some pretty big situations in the second half. So they obviously have a little bit of confidence in him. So he's a guy, if somebody hasn't been paying attention in their league and they have him, he's a guy I might try to go get a steal on because I definitely could see him being a long-term future in Dynasty next year or the year after, really paying off. And you look back and you're like, man, I'm glad I went and got him his rookie year.
Yeah. All right, tell me about the Colts. Go ahead.
Just another team. I came in with just such high expectations this year.
Johnny,
I just thought I thought this team had everything together. I thought they had everything. I said, all right, I hated Phillip Rivers. I hated that move. I would have rather kept Jacoby Brissett. But then they came in and got Matt Ryan. And I was like, you know what? I actually think Matt Ryan's got a couple good years left. I like where he's at. And he has just been a turnover machine. I mean, he's on pace to break the NFL record, single season record for fumbles in a season. We're 5 games in. It's crazy. I mean, guys just turning the ball over nuts. And on the other side, he's led like 2 last second comeback drives. So it's like if he could just figure it out and not turn the ball over, I mean, I still think this team in a really terrible division, I still think they got a shot. I really do. And they've been kind of banged up on defense. If Shaquille Leonard can get back, I mean, he's the heart and soul of that defense. And you've seen he helps create turnovers, and that's something they just haven't really done without him. I think you get him back. The defense hasn't been great, but I think it's going to get improved. The safeties have been banged up. Offensively, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, everybody called it. They're like, hey, man, he's a lot of usage last year. Is he going to get banged up? Is he going to get hurt? I think if they can get him back and get back on track, because I mean, he looked like a beast game 1. This team easily could be undefeated. I mean, well, they got smashed in that Jags game, so that does count. But I mean, they easily could have only 1 loss. It's just bad turnovers right now. Reminds me of Carson Wentz left and right. Like it just, he was good last year, but he was always bad turnovers at the wrong time, and that's kind of how they are this year. I love Pittman. I still think huge upside. He just hasn't got a lot of pain. Alec Pierce was my sleeper guy in the offseason. I was just like, I like this guy Pierce, and now everybody's starting to see it. So if you haven't got him yet, it might be hard to go get him, but everybody's trying to trade. I have 1 million shares of him. I draft him in every league I could get him in the mid-second round. If I could get him in the second round, everybody's offering me Alec Pierce trades right now. So I'm like, I just can't get rid of him. But I like Pierce upside. I hate to say it. Paris Campbell is officially dead for fantasy football. This was his one last shot. I've been holding on since his rookie year. I thought, all right, man, if he could just stay healthy, because he's produced when he's been healthy. He's produced. He's been healthy all year. He ain't producing it at all this year. He is a afterthought in the offense at this point. He's droppable in almost every league unless you're super deep, like I am, where I don't have any wide receivers and I'm still playing him, even though I can't stand it every week. But I got to play him because I have nobody else. But yeah, I mean, the other thing, tight ends, I like their tight ends. You're basically closing your eyes and throwing the dart at the board if you're playing Mo Alley-Cox or Woods or Granson the whole rest of the season. All of them got talent, but you're going to see what you did with Woods. 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, or zilch. Mo Alley-Cox, 1 big catch, 1 touchdown, or nothing. And so I just think those guys are unplayable unless you're in a play 2 tight ends where you got to get a guy and you're hoping he just gets you a touchdown. There you can go. I like him real life wise. Jelani Woods, I think, is a stash big time in Dynasty. I mean, I'm all over that guy if I can get him. If I didn't draft, I try to draft him everywhere, but if I couldn't get him, he's a guy I would trade for right now. I think they had upside. If Matt Ryan can just get it together, and again, it's what we talk about, all these new quarterbacks, people moving around. We think they just move in and everything just clicks. It just doesn't all the time. Plus the Colts, insane history of starting out 1-4, 1-5 under Reich, and then just reeling off wins. So I could see them turning around here. I mean, they got smoked by Jacksonville. I'm going to the game this weekend. I'm taking the Colts.
Well, I think you froze a little bit, JT.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, Johnny, just in case you didn't know, Justin's a season ticket holder for the Colts game, so I made him suffer through that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That was that's been dude. I don't know about that.
All right. We'll speed it up a little bit here. Commanders, 12 team rushing attempts. Is there really a rushing attack here, or what is Riverboat Ron doing with that? Why does he hate Antonio Gibson so much? And De'Ami Brown, we already talked about that. Just a couple receptions for 2 touchdowns. He looked good on a couple plays he had. But what's going on with the Commanders?
Ron Rivera, I think he's just given up. Like he used to have a lot of spirit and a lot of fight and whatnot. I felt like when he would have his press conferences and things like that. But I mean, you see when he was talking about Carson Wentz, he's like, hey, you realize like what's the difference between my team and like Tom Brady or Tampa Bay and Kansas City? He's like, a quarterback. Yeah, like he legitimately said it was a quarterback. And he's like, this is a quarterback driven league. So basically threw his quarterback under the bus. Diami Brown, I was interested in him. Like I said, I unfortunately had to drop him right before the season because I was him or what's wide receiver for the Saints. Now I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, I do think he has talent. I'm just worried that this was kind of just a play because Dotson was injured and things like that. I don't know if he's going to have a ton of value moving forward or consistent value. Because I think once the Dotson comes back, I think he kind of takes that role again. But between Gibson and Robinson, it's going to be, I think you're going to have to roll your dice. Like, I think 1 week Ron will wake up and he'll be like, all right, Robinson, you're going to be the guy. Then, goal line. And I don't know what Gibson did to Ron Rivera to make him hate him so much, but he certainly did a number. Oh, you're muted, John.
He fumbled before, and I get it, but he hasn't fumbled at all this year, and he's looked really good when he's had the ball, and then all of a sudden they just started taking his carries away, and it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, I think Ron Rivera is just trying to outsmart himself. Like, oh, we spent for this guy, I'm going to make sure it works. They get that attitude or whatever you call it, that brashness about them that they're going to make this work, but don't stab yourself in that in whatever. Just don't mess it up. You got a good thing going, or else just trade Antonio Gibson away. Send him somewhere where he can go and I don't know, whatever.
I completely agree. It's very sad what they're doing to Gibson.
Cowboys, Cooper Rush, the new the starter running back timeshare is kind of the new norm here, I think. And I don't think that it's going to go back to Elliott or swing to Pollard. I think it's going to be this 50-50 show for the next couple of years, unfortunately, because of the contract to Zeke. I don't know what they're going to do, and it doesn't seem to be working. So
I actually think Zeke is a little bit of a buy low right now. Call me crazy, but they've been giving him over. He's had 15 or more carries in 4 out of 5 games so far. They're going to be getting Dak back in the next couple of weeks. Their schedule gets a whole lot easier. And Zeke looks good. He's just not getting the touchdowns, right? Because they're stalling.
right.
I think they'll have more touchdown opportunities when Dak gets back. And so, but Tony Pollard, dynasty wise, it's going to be a real interesting summer because if he goes to another team and another team is willing to pay him, that's when things will get interesting. I'm still not 100% sold that he can be an every down back. I think Dallas knows he can't be that 1A option. He's a good, change of pace, burst type of running back. I don't think he could be the carry the load guy for a full season.
And that's okay. That's a good thing. I mean, I think he'll be able to extend his career that way. That's nothing wrong with that at all.
No. Yeah.
We talked earlier about Tua coming back and how long it's going to be, where nobody really knows the answer to that magic question. And Tyreek Hill, I forgot to mention this in the injury updates earlier. Cheetah did something with his ankle the other day. He had a walking boot on. Did you hear anything else about that?
I haven't heard. I know that, they talked about him potentially missing some time. We'll have to keep monitored. But yeah, that's not good news for either Tua or for people who drafted Hill because he was looking good with Tua.
I have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on a team. Which one of those guys should I keep?
So I saw this and I would this is something I would keep both. I would not trade either one. And why I say that is because if you think about football, right? And this is kind of like a more strategy kind of driven answer. When you think about football, every single week, like top wide receivers every single week don't necessarily pan out, right? Like they don't always go out. Sometimes they do, unless your name is like Cooper Kupp or something like that. But regularly, if a wide receiver pops off week 1 or in 1 week, it's because the defense was playing probably like a zone coverage or excuse me, more man coverage, which would dictate that, the alpha will get more targets and should be able to overcome that matchup. Whereas if you play a zone coverage team, then that would tend to lead to, and like an alpha wide receiver, kind of like Slay for the Eagles, right? Then you would want to go with that secondary option of like a Devonta Smith, because he is going to get more of like those shorter zone looks type of plays, where that could kind of beat the zone coverage. So I think keeping both actually allows you the more flexibility to actually hit the higher ceiling when it comes to plays, right? Because you can kind of look at the matchup. You could say, oh, this team is locking down the number one wide receiver on average, and then on average the secondary wide receiver for the team is the one that scores a touchdown and has 50 receiving yards. And so this allows you to go back and forth and really get the best out of that starting position, as opposed to just throwing AJ Brown out there every single week. And even though you'd probably still play him, but if you wanted to get technical with it, that's how I would go with it.
Yeah, in the Dynasty League that I have both those guys, I just sent a couple days ago, I sent Zach Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, Isaiah Pacheco, a 24 first, and something else, all to get Jalen Hurts, and I got denied instantaneously. And I'm like, I would have loved to have that triple stack.
Yeah, if you could get that triple stack, that's where then you can have some magic happen. Because if you get a double dip, I mean, we know like it greatly increases your chance of winning that week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, JT, welcome back here. Falcons.
Yeah, sorry about that. I too many kids jumping on the internet,
right?
Me off or something. Ridiculous.
If the Falcons keep abusing their quarterbacks, they might kill somebody. So, where's the passing? What's going on? Where's the passing game here on this Falcons team? What's going on here?
I'm not sure what they're trying to do here. We've talked about this in the past. I was a huge Bryan Edwards truther. I thought this was going to be the move. I was rejoicing when he got traded to the Falcons. I'm like, this is his chance. He's going to have a chance to be the number 1/2 with Drake London. They're going to all of a sudden create this magical wide receiver tandem. And then is Bryan Edwards still on the team? I mean, is he even dressing? I mean, it's unbelievable. The guy can't even get around. I mean, the 5'7" guy is getting 87 looks a game, Aguideas, and then you can't get even a look towards Bryan Edwards. I'm not sure what they're doing. I mean, Kyle Pitts. I mean, oh my God! It's like the Kyle Pitts hysteria on Twitter is just off the charts. I mean, you can't even like look 2 seconds on your timeline without seeing. So I'll be like, What Kyle Pitts? What do we do? What do we do? I mean, honestly, we knew there was going to be some growing pains on this offense with Mariota. I mean, he is what he is. I don't mind him as a quarterback. You're not winning with him. I mean, you're not. It's just not going to happen. And so, he's giving you some decent production as a RB2 or a QB2 if you had to be a two QB league or a super flex where you got to throw him in there with injuries and stuff. I mean, he's giving you some decent points. I hate to say it, he's outscoring Matt Stafford in one of my leagues that I have him. But that offense is just rough, which is crazy to say because their defense has actually been pretty tough. And their defense has been bad the last couple of years, but they've actually got a lot of young guys. They've looked good. They just traded Deion Jones away to the Browns. For me, I love that because that opens the door for Anderson, my boy, the rookie. I love this kid. In an IDP league, snap him up right now because by next year he is going to be a point producer, man. This guy from what was it? Arizona? No, what? Montana State. Sorry about that. Montana State, just converted QB. Guy gets all over the field, makes a million plays. He's fast as can be. He's just got that it factor for me on a defense wise. So I love him. The Falcons, I hate to say it, I think they should be better than they are. I mean, they've actually played pretty well. I mean, they've actually been in a ton of games. And if it isn't for that terrible roughing the passer call on Grady Jarrett, they maybe win that game against the Bucs the other day. the question I think right now, and especially Twitter timeline, is when do they go to Ritter? Do you stick with Mariota the whole year, or do you give Ritter a shot at some point? I'm not sure there. I'm not sure how far around along Ritter is, but it feels like this offense should be better. Obviously, I think missing Cordell Patterson, I think, is going to be a big loss for them, just because I think he's that one senior older guy on that offense. I think kind of holding it together. And now I feel like you're playing a bunch of young guys, and sometimes that's good because everybody's like, oh, hey, guy, we're all the young guys. Let's put it all together. Let's all go all for one. Or you go, we're all trying to prove ourselves. Everybody's out for their own, and then it just doesn't come together. So that's a shaky offense for me as far as plays, who to play. I mean, Brian Edwards sitting on my bench in 1,000 leagues. I mean, 1,000 leagues.
Yeah,
I can't believe he can't get a look. I mean, obviously Drake London, hype was really high. Had a couple huge games. Had a couple down games. Maybe if you're trying to acquire him, now's the time to try to sneak back in on him. But if you ever want to get a Kyle Pitts share, now's the time to try to see if somebody's freaking out. See if there's some kind of owner out there who's like, I just this is ridiculous, and do the Johnny move, just straight send everybody out trades for Kyle Pitts. I think these guys got a lot of upside, but man, I really think if you're counting on any Falcon the rest of the way week to week, you're gonna really have a lot of disappointments. I just think you're gonna see a lot of up game, awesome London games, then nothing. Awesome Pitts games, then nothing. I just think you're going to see a lot of that the rest of the way. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I just see that a lot of boom or bust out of this offense.
No, we were sold on an inaccurate quarterback with big, huge catch radius wide receivers that would make Tannehill. I mean, Mariota look good, and it's like it's not happening. So I don't know what it is, but. All right, we're only halfway through. We spent like 45 minutes already, so we got like 20 seconds per answer here. 49ers, do you really want to use anyone on this offense, or is it just like every week it's kind of like, it's a toss up who you're going to try? Johnny?
I mean, only Debo for me. That's about it, and you're crossing your fingers somewhat as well.
Yeah. All right. Giants, is Danny Dimes the future to G-Men? What can he do? What would he be able to do if these receivers are healthy on this team? JT.
Here's my quick thing on Danny Dimes. They keep winning. It looks good for him. I don't care fantasy wise. It looks good for him overall. If they keep winning, they're not going to get rid of him. His fantasy numbers have not been great. I mean, look at it. They don't look great. But you know what? Everybody's talking positive about him, and that's a huge thing. They're just talking positive because they're winning. Obviously, Saquon's a stud. I can tell you a bunch of trades I made in the offseason for Saquon that people told me I absolutely lost. They're like, terrible trade. Now, if I went back and put that exact same trade on Twitter, I win by 90% vote. I guarantee it. So I'm going to take my victory lap on that because I was all over Saquon this year coming back. So love Saquon. Kenny G, oh my God. Between him and Brian Edwards, what has happened? How did Kenny G just die? Did he just decide to hate football? Did he
Monstar stole his down?
Danny Dimes' girlfriend? Well, I mean, what's going on? It blows my mind, man. I loved Kenny G on the Lions. I got him everywhere. He was one of those guys I was taking like the third or fourth round, and I was like, I'm stealing from people. I knew he was gonna be good. And man, I've never seen a player need Matt Stafford more in his life than Kenny G. Yeah. Oh, brutal, dude. So yeah, the wide receiver core is terrible there. The only other guy I like fantasy, if I'm telling you fantasy wise, go out and buy you some Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah, I already got him everywhere.
Same guy, Aztecs. I loved him coming out of the Aztecs. He was a productive guy on a terrible pass offense, and I just thought he was going to be wide open. This is what we talk about in fantasy, that wide open space where you're like, oh, there's nobody there. He's got every opportunity. Well, crap, somebody actually stepped in and did exactly what we said. Every opportunity, and now he's playing. So I love him. I've got him all over the place. Pick him up if you can.
You got a rushing touchdown this week too, yeah. So, all right, Johnny, Jaguars. Is this a Travis Etienne awakening party going on, or are you starting to get more carries now?
He is starting to get more carries. It is nice to see. I do still have my reserves, like James Robinson's still involved. He looks better than I thought he was going to be. And that's just what Doug kind of does with his backfield. He kind of will use 2 to 3 running backs often. But I do like what I'm seeing from ETN, like in how he's coming back from this injury. So I do think better days are ahead for ETN. But I think it really needs like I was really thinking that it was just going to be solely him. So I thought that was more of so what his ceiling was, as opposed to James Conner actually becoming back and being a dog, and so kind of lowers his overall ceiling this year.
When is this Trevor Lawrence roller coaster going to stop? Where he looks real good and then he looks bad, and he looks real good again. You're like, oh, this Brad's getting awesome, and then it's like, come on, man. He reverts back to is he just going to be like a flash in the pan like 3 or 4 times a game and then just kind of be sucked the rest of the time kind of thing? Or I mean, I don't get it, man. But
I don't understand it.
all right, JT, Brees Hall, 18 for 97 rushing, 2 for 100 receiving touchdowns. Zach Wilson is he a better NFL quarterback than a fantasy quarterback? What's the story with the Jets?
Love Brees Hall. Everybody loved him coming out. I'm mad I don't have him on any teams. I mean, any teams. I would do a ton to get him. I don't know if there's any amount of I could trade to get him. Brees Hall's. I just think he's good. I think he's a really good football player. I think he's got a ton of talent. Obviously, if you got him, you're not getting rid of him. And if you are getting rid of him, you want the house for him. So you're good there. Now, the biggest question, Jets, what do you do with the wide receivers? It's kind of been all over the place. Reemerges Corey Davis all of a sudden is becoming their big play guy again. Elijah Moore, who I love, is just disappeared. I actually dropped him in a league, in a redraft league today. I hated to do it, but I was like, he's just not producing. I needed to pick up somebody else. I actually dropped him and picked up Etienne because I need another running back. So I actually did that in one league.
It's not bad.
Garrett Wilson, love Garrett Wilson. But again, he's been hit and miss when you're going to hit him. I do think I was not a Zach Wilson guy coming out. I kind of felt like he was a guy I felt like New York was the worst possible place for him to land for just who he was and everything. Man, he's only been back like 2 games, but he's looked pretty decent. If he can keep doing what he's doing, man, you got to start looking at this Jets offense going, man, are we downplaying them? I mean, I hate Joe Flacco more than anyone in the world, and Joe Flacco looked amazing with this team. So you got to look at it, it's like, was it Joe Flacco, or is it just because they got a ton of great weapons around him? I think this Jets team, excuse me, I think this Jets team needs to start being looked at as more of a high-end fantasy producer than I think we thought they were going to be.
They went underneath the radar because the Bills and the Dolphins were talking to town in the AFC East. So I think that all this kind of stuff got forgotten a little bit, even though, everybody knew that they were improving, but I think they improved a little bit more than everybody expected. So Lions, have teams kind of finally figured out Jared Goff, where this is like the end of the road for the Goff thing, or just is this a team that the bye week couldn't have came in a better situation right now with everybody hurt and they just need to regroup a little bit because, Johnny, what do you think about the Lions?
Yeah, I think Goff's going to be fine. I mean, they played New England with Bill Belichick. He knows how to, confuse quarterbacks. And, so I do think that, I know that defense is bad for Detroit. So Goff is going to have to continue to throw in order to keep pace with how many points their defense is giving up. So I do think better days are ahead for Goff. He'll get those weapons back and he's going to need them. But I do think that I don't know if I would say he's going to be a top 10 quarterback still. But I do think that he will be, a very good QB2 or a bye week or, depending on what the matchup is, a decent fill-in, depending on what other quarterback you have.
Yeah. That's exactly.
I was going to say, a couple of my redraft leagues, I've been seeing some nice Swift trades of late. So I don't think you can go get him in Dynasty. Dynasty guys are still all over him. But I've been seeing some nice moves in redraft from people that the guys are like a little out on him. They see the injury. They remember the history. You can go in and steal some Swift right now. I've been putting out some trades for him. I had a couple buddies that called me up, sent me some trades. They're like, what do you think? I'm like, I can't believe you got Swift for that. because you saw the big Jamal Williams game, and I think some guys are just like, oh, I'm out on Swift. So if you can in your redraft leagues, I think go out there, throw an offer out for Swift you might not think is that good. You might get somebody for him.
Yep. I agree.
Absolutely. All right. The Packers, Romeo Doubs is kind of polarizing. This team needs a wide receiver. They need someone to step up as wide receiver one quick. Like, what are these Packers going to do?
Oh, it's what they talked about coming into the season. They thought, hey, Aaron Rodgers is going to make somebody great, and it hasn't happened yet. Christian Watson, I was not huge on him coming in. I think I only got maybe 1 or 2 shares of him. I took everybody else if I could before him. He fell to me in a couple leagues. I got him on my taxi squad. Hopefully, he's a guy that has room to improve. I think he's got a lot of talent, but I just didn't see him producing much this year. That Packers team, man, if I can get rid of Aaron Rodgers, especially in a redraft, or if I'm older in a dynasty league, I'm trading him away because I think this Packers team is going to win games. I do not see Rodgers putting up huge numbers the rest of the year. I think they're going to, longer the season goes on, they're going to pound the rock. Aaron Jones, Dylan, that defense is great. I can see them playing a lot more low-scoring games where they say, Rodgers, we just need you to make 1 or 2 plays for us, and we can get out with a win. I'm Dubs. If you got in Dynasty, I'm on him. I'm out on almost every other Packer that isn't a running back at this point, especially in redraft. Dynasty, you can hold a couple of these guys. I think them being an offensive juggernaut is not going to happen this year outside of RBs getting you production. So I'm out on those guys. I'm moving if I can. Real life, good football team. Real life going to end up with a lot of wins. But I just don't think fantasy, their offense is going to produce for you. I'd rather have Jets players, to be honest, at this point for fantasy season.
Yeah. Panthers, is McCaffrey going to the Bills? How pissed off is DJ Moore in this offense? And who knew Baker was going to be worse than Sam Darnold? Real fast, Johnny, what do you think about that?
It'd be interesting if CMC goes to the Bills. That'd be wild. That'd be really fun to watch. DJ Moore is interesting. I guess there are some rumors that he could actually be going to the Giants, which I might say actually might be better for him. And then Baker, I just feel bad for the guy. Like, too many offensive new schemes. Like, he did just get traded there like not that long ago. Now he's gonna have to learn another system because Rule is out. You feel for the guy. He's probably gonna have to be a backup somewhere and then regain the trust, and then have to hope he gets an opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, I feel like it's a Jay Cutler scenario where every year you got a different coordinator, and it's like memorizing a new telephone book every year, and it's like,
dude,
it's ridiculous.
How you expect
Carolina is the perfect example of fantasy blow it up team. If you're a fantasy manager, you're blowing this. Everybody's telling you, dude, stop holding on. Blow this thing up before you're just buried. And the Panthers just don't want to believe it. But, man, it's time to blow that thing up.
Sure,
they are not even close. So if I'm them, I'm sending DJ. I'm sending CMC. I'm sending everybody but my young defensive players off because, man, that team is just a disaster right now.
Yeah. Yep. Patriots got Bailey Zappi. It really doesn't look too bad for. It's nice to
my
have
guy. He's my boy.
I think everybody I know, including myself, has Bailey Zappi on the end of their bench.
I love Zappi. Yeah. I love Zappi. I took him in so many leagues because everybody's like, "Oh, Mac Jones, clear cut starter. Why would you pick Bailey Zappi?" And I'm like, "Do we forget RG3, Kirk Cousins? Do we forget Wentz and Jalen Hurts?" I'm learning from my mistakes. Don't take a guy that you actually like because you think there's no way he's going to play. Burnt me with Lamar Jackson. Oh, they'll never sit Flacco. I mean, he won a Super Bowl. They owe him. Stupid. So start taking talent. Bailey Zappi has talent, man. The guy threw for like 6,000 yards and like 70 touchdowns at Western Kentucky. I mean, the dude can play. I like him a ton. Is he the future of New England? I don't know, man. Maybe he ends up taking over Mac Jones if he plays well enough. I could see it happening. But if not, I could see him going somewhere else in a year or two and ended up doing a Matt Cat or Jimmy G situation where they trade him away to somebody else. So if I'm in Dynasty, I'm getting all the Zappi I can. I took him in a ton of leagues. I stashed him on every taxi squad. Even if I didn't need him, I got him. He's a guy I'm getting. He's obviously going to be harder to get now that he started. But if you got a chance, go pick him up.
Wait till Mac Jones comes back and then spam the leagues. That's how you do it, right? As soon as everybody's down on him again. That's how you got it. Raiders, Josh Jacobs is an absolute stud. I didn't really believe in this guy. Him and Sanders were two people I'd kind of were like, just get these guys off my team. I don't know what's going to happen, especially because I kept MFing them and playing them the whole offseason. Man, I was wrong about Josh Jacobs. He is an absolute stud. Johnny, what do you think about the Raiders offense, first of all, and then Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, this is one of those guys that I'm like kicking myself, whereas like I feel like there's a handful of guys every single year where you're just like, I knew this. I should have seen this coming. Like we had all the data that pointed to this, and yet we just chose to go the other way. And I feel like that's how it is with the Josh McDaniels and the Raiders with Josh Jacobs, right? Like Josh McDaniels has always had this running back. We always say like, oh, like, oh, with the Patriots, it was this big, like, oh, I don't know which running back to get. No, we did know every single time which running back. And it was Damian last year. It was their number one. And they end up being, top 12, top 15 running backs because that's what his scheme produces. And so Josh Jacobs, coming in this year and really producing, despite, like you said, I don't have him in a single league because we had, Rich Rebar on and things like that. And I just believed what, I was like, I believe what they're feeding me. Like, I agree with it. And it was just like, oh, I should have seen this one. Like Josh McDaniels uses running backs.
I was down by 90 points in the game last night. I had
Kelsey and
Josh
Jacobs.
I had Mahomes, Jacobs, and Juju Smith-Schuster, and Juju kept messing up the whole entire game. But anyway, I won by like 8.5 points. I'm like,
nice.
I had like 97, like 98 points. I was like, yes.
Nice.
It was like the unbelievable comeback. But I needed Jacobs to have a humongous game for that to happen. So
I had a league. I came back with Jacobs, Kelsey, and Juju. And Juju was the guy that cost me. I lost by a point. Came all the way back. Juju only put up 6 points. Those other two guys put up 40, and I was like, one more Juju catch, and I pass. Killed me.
And he should have had like 5 more. He kept dropping them or getting pass interfered that wasn't called and stuff like that. It's like,
he had one. He was wide open on the goal line. He hit him with a slant, and he caught it, and they got called for false start.
Yes.
I was like,
yeah, I hate. That's the worst. It's the worst.
That's why I hate watching the games. That's why I watch Red Zone and drink beers on Sunday.
Yeah, you don't see all the if you do that, you don't see all the missed points from all your players on the penalties. Because then I go back in my head and I'm like, Rashad Penny actually had another 75 yards rushing without all the holding penalties.
Right.
All right, the Rams running game sucks. Everybody besides Kupp and Higbee suck. How did they fix this offense? Is it just an O-line issue or what's going on? JT, what do you think?
Dude, this is the craziness that is the insanity that is the NFL. Sean McVay is the genius of all geniuses one moment, and then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, the guy doesn't know how to coach. They can't do anything on offense. I mean, it's just crazy week to week how good these teams look and then how bad they look. The Rams look awful right now. Matt Stafford, I love Matt Stafford. Man, he looks terrible. If you watch the games, he looks terrible. He looks worse than his stats are, actually. I mean, that elbow is definitely way worse than people are talking about. He looks like he has no confidence. The O-line he's getting just absolutely mauled on every play. If Cooper Kupp is not on this Rams team, I don't know if they have a win. Right. I mean, really, Cooper Kupp is absolutely carrying this team right now. It's insanity to me. And what is he doing with the running backs? Akers 1 week, Henderson, Akers. It's like he just decides to forget about one guy every other week. Akers, again, another guy I'm on the record saying I'm not an Akers fan. I actually like Henderson better. How does Henderson just get zero love last week? I mean, nothing. And it's not like it wasn't a close game. It was a close game throughout. How is he not getting some kind of carry? I feel like sometimes these coaches are outthinking themselves. Instead of just doing what like is a normal, like, hey, let's just run this off tackle play. Nope, I'm going to look left, go right, throw to my fifth wide receiver. They'll never see it coming. To just run the play, man. Just run a normal, regular play and say, hey, my offense is going to beat your defense on a play. It's like everyone's trying to outsmart each other on every single play, and it goes too far. And I think McVay's in that spot. where he's trying to outsmart everybody on every play, as opposed to go, hey, let's run a set offense, let's make some easy plays, and then I'll pull out the tricks when I need them. But I feel like it's like, oh, I'm gonna do whatever I think you don't think I'm gonna do, and he's outsmarting himself.
All I know is Darrell Henderson had a really good week 1, and I traded him away for second-round picks and every league I had him in, and it was awesome.
It was a great move by you. I mean, I've got Henderson in a ton of leagues. I took him way late. He was like kind of my mid-round guy where I was like, you know what? He's going to be in an RB2. I can kind of play him there in the flex. And it's like he's gave me some good weeks. And then last week I played him. He gave me basically certain leagues he gave me 0. A couple weeks I had 2 or 3 points only. But yeah, I mean, this Rams offense, the Rams are going to be in it. Their defense is still really good. I mean, really, really good. But man, they've got to figure out some kind of identity that isn't, okay, crap, where's Cooper? I mean,
right.
But at least the one thing I can't say about them is they know how to get on the ball. At least they can get their best player the ball. That's the only positive I can say about the Rams offense right now. Matt Stafford's absolutely crushing me in every league. I want to bench him so bad in every league. It kills me.
Johnny, the Ravens, when did they get their running game back on track?
What do you mean? Lamar's running the ball just fine.
Besides Lamar.
You said the running game. He is the running game there. No, I mean, this is the reality of what happens when you have running backs with Lamar. Lamar is going to take a ton of the valuable carries. That's the ones around the goal line. That is, the big chunk plays. Will Dobbins have some games where he goes off? Absolutely. But you're not going to guarantee, you're not going to know those. Like, you're not going to feel confident in putting Dobbins in there saying, hey, I know he's going to be, a lock for an RB2 this week. It's going to be very matchup based. It's going to be dependent on whether Lamar makes that read at the goal line. And they're also switching out running backs as well. So that's another issue that you have as well. So the only running back that I could fully trust is Lamar in that backfield. But Dobbins does have upswing. So, if you do have a week where, you're playing against someone on a Thursday night and they have a good matchup, Baltimore has a good matchup that weekend, you need the upswing. He definitely has that home run ability, but he's just not going to be consistent for you.
Yeah. Saints, Taysom Hill, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown. 9 for 112. Like, this guy went nuts this year. He's a boomer bust tight end. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want him.
Cheat code.
He is a cheat code when he cheats, but yeah.
When he cheats, he's the cheat code, dude.
I had a buddy text me and goes, "Are you kidding me? Taysom Hill counts as a tight end," flipping out because he's playing a guy and Taysom Hill's just going off on him. And I was like, yeah, technically he counts as a tight end. He's like, this is ridiculous. He's so mad. I'm like, you're only mad because he's not on your team.
Right, exactly.
But again, this is something we should have seen coming. Maybe not this game, but you knew one of these huge Taysom Hill games was coming. There's always 1 to 2 a season where he just, for some reason, the Saints decide, this is the Taysom Hill game. Now we're going to give him 1 million carries. We're going to let him throw the ball. We're going to let him do this. We're going to let him do that. And then next week, he's going to do nothing. But
yeah, he'll be inactive.
He's going to do nothing next week. But I mean, if you got him in your lineup and you played him, I mean, congrats to you. You're a champion. I had 1 league. He was on the waiver wire. I went in and put in for him. I'm sure I'm going to play him this week for nothing if I get him. But it's huge. I mean, this is the thing that is just the NFL. All of a sudden, Andy Dalton comes in and the Saints are scoring everywhere. What? Mr. Andy Dalton, who couldn't do anything with the Bears. Anything at all. And now all of a sudden, hey, dumping it off to Kamara, dumping it off to Taysom Hill, just moving the ball at will. It's crazy. But Olave, hopefully injury's not long. Guy I loved coming out. I think you go redraft right now. Most people are taking him or London as their number 1 wide receiver if you really look at it, because Olave has looked really good, and we're still on the Michael Thomas. I mean, I'm off completely on him at this point. But yeah, Olave looks great. Kamara finally getting you a little comeback game for everybody that's been on him, waiting on him to have a huge game. So,
yep. Johnny, Seahawks, Geno Smith is the real cook. Kenneth Walker's about to be RB1. Real quick, tell me about the Seahawks.
Geno Smith, man, yeah, he's cooking, man. He's the real deal. Apparently, I mean, it's the system. The system. Pete Carroll knew what he was doing. He's moving the ball a lot more than a lot of us thought. Ken Walker, yeah, he will get the bulk of the carries. I'm interested in trying to get him if he's available on your waiver wire. I do think that he will get a ton of carries and they'll be in scoring position. So yeah, Ken Walker should be a waiver wire guy you look for.
Couldn't land in a better spot. I picked him up last week on the waiver wire. Thank God, and all this shit happened, and I was like,
Johnny, everything I wanted Drew Lock to do this year is Geno Smith.
Yeah.
I know.
Every week I see Geno Smith just lighting it up, and I'm like, this could have been Drew Lock. This could have been Drew Lock.
Yes.
Oh, I'm happy for Geno Smith. He's playing great. But every week I look at it, I'm like, this is what I thought Drew Lock could have done with this offense. And it just kills me. I just wanted to see one season, Drew Lock season, where he got a chance and blew up. And Geno's killing it, man.
Yeah. Johnny, Steelers, Kenny Pickett got thrown right in the fire this week, and it's only going to get worse for the next couple of weeks. And Jaylen Warren had a lot of snaps, but it was all in like surrender mode. Just somebody go out there and wave the white flag while we get killed by the Bills. So how do the Steelers right the ship here?
I mean, this is going to be a real challenge, right? Pickett's going to have to continue to be in there. You can't go back now. And, Tomlin is not the type of the type of coach to kind of go back and forth. This is going to have to be a really defensive-minded team. They're going to have to squeak out games and just hope that Pickett can kind of take his lumps and really learn. Their schedule is brutal. So that's why I was just like, I didn't think Pickett was going to start this year just because of that. Because, it is absolutely brutal. But here we are. He's starting. So I think you just got to take the lumps and throw him out there. I think you'll be okay. I think you'll see ups and downs, but I think you'll see a real big change next year. And then Jaylen Warren, continues to be something I'm watching, right? Like, we knew coming in that Najee was dealing with some foot issues, and we know what those look like with those players. We had a bunch of examples, and so we tend to know that it does affect the running backs a significant amount. And Warren looks good when he's in there, so we should see him get a little bit more carries just to kind of relieve Najee. And then if anything does end up having a Najee, then Warren would be the guy.
Yeah, Johnny, I'm going. If you can afford to get Pickett on a young team, a dynasty, go get him. Go get him right now.
Yes,
He's not going to look great over these next couple of weeks because they're playing monstrous defenses. He actually played pretty well in that Bills game, and he was 3 Deontay Johnson. Get your freaking toe in the inside. From having a really big game. I mean, Deontay screwed him on a couple big plays, but Pickett, if I can get him on a rebuild team, a team that's young, and I'm a year or two out, I'm going after Pickett right now. If somebody hasn't got on George Pickens' train yet, do it right now. Do it right now. George Pickens, I'm telling you, is going to be their number one by the end of this year. Next year, guaranteed. He's their number one wide receiver. Yep. He is so much better than Deontay Johnson in my eyes. And I like Deontay. George Pickens makes every play that Deontay doesn't make. He's a guy I'm going and getting everywhere. I took him in every draft. I actually moved down in a lot of drafts to get him. If I had the 1.6, 1.7, I was trading back to like 1.10, 1.11, and because I wanted Pickens. So I go get George Pickens right now.
If he could just use 2 hands. If he could just use 2 hands, then Pickens is going to be amazing.
Yeah, he's going to be great. Warren, I like him. I got in every league. I'm stashing him. If they start getting really bad, which is going to happen, I see Warren get more and more carries because they're not going to bury Najee for no reason this year. Right. I can see Warren getting a lot more carries. His biggest thing is fumbles. He had a hard time in preseason holding on the football. If he holds on to it, he's going to be playable. But go get those young Steelers players now while they're bad. And I'm telling you, I hate to even say that I'm saying this. If you have Deontay Johnson, start looking to trade him. See if you can get something for him. I'm out on Deontay Johnson at this point. I'm moving him if I can get any kind of value for him.
Him and Claypool both.
Claypool, exactly. I mean, I don't even know what you can get for Claypool.
Yeah, dude, you can't get nothing for Claypool.
He's absolutely murdering me.
You might be able to get a wob dollar, maybe.
Oh, so bad. It's so bad.
Damian Pierce was my number 4 running back coming in this offseason. So I expected him to be good, but at the same time, I didn't expect this. He's doing real good on what was like a kind of a crappy team. So what do you think about that? And is Davis Mills everybody kind of caught on to the Davis Mills train? So the ride's over with, get rid of him now kind of thing? Or what do you guys think about Davis Mills?
I'm sitting on David. A couple people have been offering me stuff for Davis Mills, just guys that need backups, need a second quarterback in a super flex league. I just required him in one league for not much on a team I really needed a second QB. It's tough because right now you got to decide: are the Houston Texans going QB next year in the draft?
Yeah.
You got to assume they are, and if they
Mhm.
are, you got to move Mills because he's just going to become completely worthless at the end of the year because you got to assume they're not going to trade him. You got to assume he's just going to sit as the backup. So if you can get any value out of Mills right now, I think you do it. Unless you're on some kind of contending team where you need him. I don't know if you're contending and he can actually be helpful for you, but I don't hate Davis Mills at all. I actually think he's got some pretty good talent. He's got some stuff, but I just feel like the Texans are on that team trajectory where they definitely know they're going QB next year, and I just think you got to get rid of Mills before it's too late. Other than that, Pierce is the only guy I like other than Cooks. Brandon Cooks is who he is. If you can get him for something super low, like he's a great extra flex guy, he's going to get up some points for you. But that's about it for me on Texans.
The rule of thumb in fantasy football is do not trade a quarterback, especially in a super flex league or a 2-quarterback league, is do not trade a quarterback away unless you get a quarterback in return. Who would you
Mhm.
expect to get back if you sent?
If I could get a second for Mills, if I could talk somebody in a 2 QB league and do a second round pick for him, I'm all over that.
You're not getting a
Even maybe
quarterback with a 2nd-round pick in a super flex or 2-quarterback league though next year.
not usually, but depending on if you're in a 2 QB league and somebody has injury problems and they're competing and need maybe a third quarterback because they're down to 2 guys. In most of my 2 QB leagues I'm in Dynasty, that's about where you're getting. If you're getting a starter, you're getting about mid-second to early third. You can get a guy if he's a low-end starter. You can get that kind of value because they're so hard to come by. And again, if you got a guy who's competing who needs that extra insurance, there's a chance you can get them to divvy up for that. Super flex is going to be a lot harder, but a 2 QB league, you definitely can move a guy for that second or third. Davis Mills, I can totally see you getting that value out of him. I tried to in an IDP league. I tried to get a solid safety for Mills, and I didn't get the deal done. They wanted to give me a low end safety that I didn't want. I tried to get like a Jordan Poyer for him, and he just didn't want to give him up. But like I said, if you can move Mills for something decent, a younger prospect, something, I would do it.
Stop talking IDP around here, okay? Nobody likes that shit.
Sorry, I know I'm like the only guy that plays IDP, so
I'm gonna wait till these next couple of weeks when it's bye week hell and do the best I can to trade Mills away to somebody who has no quarterbacks for like a third, like a first, like a late first or something like that. You know?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I had a 1 QB league that a guy was looking for Mills because he didn't have a backup, and he's 4-0, and he saw that bye week coming. He's got Josh Allen. He doesn't want to give away a week. So I was trying to get a steal in there somewhere. Eventually, he's like, and then he ended up getting Bailey Zappi on the waiver wire, which I kicked myself. I didn't realize he was on there. I would have stolen him in front of him. But once he got Zappi, he kind of was like, I don't know if I need Mills anymore. But I think that's a good situation. If you have somebody that no one's going to need Mills, but if they need him for like a little bit of insurance, that's where you want to give him to that guy that needs that insurance. Guy that's only got 2 QBs in a super flex league, got bye weeks coming up. He's got a good record. He's like, hey, can I get you can get Mills in here and I can use them for a bye week fill in. Hey man, if you can get a draft pick or a lower end wide receiver, maybe you get a Shakur, somebody like that. You're just like, oh hey, I can sit on a guy like that. Maybe I can get an Otten or a Bellinger, like get a tight end that I can maybe sit on. Again, at this point, I'm taking anything I can for Mills because I think by this time next year, he's basically going to be worthless because I think they're going to take a QB and he's going to be out.
Yeah. Johnny, Titans, Derrick Henry's a horse. Tannehill's average at best. When is Bobby Trees going to break out finally?
I don't know that he is. I was worried about him all year just because he's coming off the injury. We know guys are slower coming off of ACL injuries. I would tend to think that next year will probably be a little bit better for him, but he is getting up there in age. So depending on I haven't checked Tennessee's schedule as of late, but there might be an opportunity. He is seeing some targets, but again, I am if I have Woods, the moment that he does go off, I probably would try trading him just because with Tennessee, not a super run or super pass heavy offense. And I mean, yeah, he's getting some decent targets and stuff, so you can kind of upsell that a little bit. But I'm not expecting him to be like the old Bobby Trees that you were seeing with the Rams, where he was wide receiver, 15 every single year. Oh, you're muted.
Johnny's got to take
Yeah.
off soon. He's got
Yep,
to.
you had yourself muted. There you go.
Yeah, I got it now. Johnny's got to take off soon. So whenever you, Johnny, thanks a lot for coming on today, man. These shows usually go about 45 minutes to an hour. This is
More.
just one of those times where JT doesn't shut the hell up. So we.
I know. I
No,
talk
it's
too
all
much. You got
Hey, it's all
to
good.
give me the cut sign. You got to give me the cut sign.
Hey, dude, it's all good. I love talking ball, so I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming out. We got a lot more to go on the show, but hopefully we'll get done the next 3 hours or so, and then but I'll put it up in podcast form tomorrow. Thanks a lot for spending the time here tonight. Get kind of see your way out. Where can everybody find you at again?
You can find me on Twitter at Johnny _Gametime or the Fantasy Whisperer. Just search us on Twitter or wherever you find podcasts or on YouTube. Find us there, putting out fantasy football content, just trying to live our best life. Appreciate you guys so much for having me on the show. John, I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while and it's always been hit or miss. So I was really, really excited to jump on here and get to talk with you, man.
Yeah, I'm super happy. Show went a little bit longer than I usually like it, but I mean, we got to cover a lot of stuff and just talk football. And I'm not here to just guess numbers and shit like that. I like just talking to football people, and that's what the show's all about, having a good time. So,
absolutely, it was
all
nice
right.
meeting you, JT.
We'll try and get you back on again for a little shorter show in the future, okay?
For sure. I'm always down.
Say hi to the boys at the Whispers, all right?
Will do. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks a lot, man.
Peace.
All right, JT, me and you got to get through this now.
I'll crank it down. 20 seconds, everything. Sorry about that.
Vikings.
Too many people I want to talk about.
I know. No, listen. I mean, for the 8 people that are going to listen to the show, who cares? Whatever.
Vikings. Kirk Cousins continues to be a low end guy, super flex. You can play him as your second guy. QB2. He's a great play in QB2. Dalvin Cook. Finally, they're starting to give him a little carries. JJ, you're playing every week. Monster week again. The biggest question on this team is Irv Smith and Thielen. Do you play those guys? Do you not? Every week, I look at Thielen and I'm like, is this the week he gets a couple catches? This is the week he doesn't. That's the biggest problem for me is Thielen in a flex spot. Do you play him or do you not? And at this point, it's just a guessing game week to week.
Yeah. All right, we made it through all 32 teams. That was kind of crazy, but it is what it is. So we got it. Looking for first of all, look out for mistakes in your waiver wire. Look for people that are desperate for. I just literally sent. It's a redraft league, but some guy spent all his fab in the first week of the season trying to get. I don't know who the hell he got, but I just sent $350 in fab for a guy with no fab for George Kittle in a tight end premium league in a redraft tight end premium league, and the guy accepted it. So. And
that is a steal. Nicely done, John.
I had Hawkinson, who's on a bye this week, and we were desperate for a tight end. And I'm like, whatever. So I'm like, this guy's got no fab. I only had $750 on a fab, so I still had $300 in fab left over, which is plenty for the whole season as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. My team's already stacked. I'll take it. I got George Kittle as my backup.
Dude, that's a great move. I mean, that's I've never seen somebody use the fab that way. I got to start thinking like you, man. I got to start thinking just start selling I never use that much of my fab money. I got to start selling that fab money off.
Look every year, on Sleeper, if you go down to like underneath the games, it says rankings, it says how much fab money everybody has left right next to their points for. So I looked at that first. I saw the guy had 0 fab, and I'm like, this guy's got a kind of a bad team. He just lost 2 games in a row. He's probably desperate for the waiver wire. I've already got all the good guys to get fab on for this week. So whatever. I I
Yeah,
got the.
that's an awesome move by you. I love it.
Thank you very much. So waiver wire targets for this week. Look for those mistakes. People get impatient. Can you take over these waiver wire things or start off with them real fast? I got to run to the bathroom real fast.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, waiver wires, the guys I'd be looking for. Jalen Warren, if has for some reason hasn't been picked up this year, you got to go Jalen Warren. I mean, he's going to get playing time, depending on what happens with Najee Harris. But he's definitely a guy I'm looking for. Other guys you got to look for is wide receivers. Who's out there? Who's not? Obviously, we talked earlier about Kenny Walker for Seattle Dynasty. There's no way he's out there on the waiver or anything, but redraft leagues, he's definitely a guy you got to pick up and kind of stash because obviously he could be a league winner at this point if you can get Kenny Walker. So he's definitely a guy I'm going after. If you're in the higher end tight end premium leagues, starting to look at those young rookies, Daniel Bellinger, Kate Otten. Those guys are starting to get more looks. So if you're a guy who was counting on Albert O, that type of tight end who has just not produced whatsoever, you need to look at maybe a Bellinger, maybe an Otten. Those guys got even Isaiah Likely from Baltimore Ravens is starting to get a little more play in here. So he's a guy I'd be looking for as well. I said it a little bit earlier, but if you're looking for a low-end guy, running back, just kind of fill some spot in the buys, I'm looking for maybe a Jerick McKinnon from Kansas City. He's a decent pickup as well if I'm out there. If you haven't gone out there and picked up Bailey Zappi, if he's still out there, you got to go get him in any kind of super flex league. If you're in a dynasty league that somehow someone didn't draft him and stash him on the taxi, he's a definitely pickup guy, hold for the future. I like as well. Wide receivers are starting to get really, really thin in certain leagues, depending on how deep your league is. One guy I've gone out and gotten a few leagues. I'm not super high on it. I don't love it, but I've gone out and got Sills from the Giants.
Yeah.
All the wide receiver injuries. He's a guy I've been picking up in deep leagues. Now, obviously, I don't want to play him, but with all the bye weeks, I'm going to get these couple spots in a few of my leagues where I'm just going to be at the end of my rope of who to play. And so I've been picking up Sills and trying to sneak him in a few leagues. I'm always blanking on his name. It was Almadias Zacharias. Is that who it is from the Falcons? I always mess up his name. It's like long. I always forget. But he's a guy that got some PT last year. He's starting to get some looks this year. If he's not on a team, he's a decent pickup because right now, with Pitts not getting a ton of looks, Bryan Edwards being dead, he's basically behind Drake London, number 2 right now in targets and receptions for the Falcons. So if you're deep diving in a league and you need somebody, he's a guy I would look at possibly picking up. This is a really crazy deep one. I mean, you got to be really needing somebody in a deep league. But Michael Strachan for the Indianapolis Colts, Ashton Doolin just went on IR.
Mm-hmm.
They're having struggles with a couple other guys. Paris Campbell, he's 1 second away from another injury. He's a guy who could end up being the number 3 there behind Pierce and Pittman. Like I said, that's deep dive. I mean, that's if you're in a league that's 14, 16 teams deep. You're looking for a bye week fill-in. He's a guy you might want to possibly pick up and stash.
I had Michael Strachan last year on a bunch of my teams, and I was kind of like, yeah, this guy could be something. He's got a lot of the tools and stuff. He just didn't really kind of pan out. So
the biggest thing for him is he was a D3 kid. So he's a guy that I like him a lot. I knew he's that 3-4 year guy. You got to give him time to adjust the NFL. He's only a second year. So again, I've stashed him in a couple deeper dynasty leagues on my taxi. But with the Ashton Doolin news that he's going on IR, there's a good chance if anything happens to Pierce, Pittman, or Campbell, he immediately becomes the number 3 wide receiver. So I'm trying to grab him and stash him on leagues where I have a little room on the roster, just in case that happens. There's so many leagues where it's just getting so thin. If you're in a 14, 16 team league, it's so thin on waiver wires out there. You got to look at some of those deep dives of guys that aren't producing but have opportunities possibly down the stretch. Khalif Raymond is another guy for the Lions who, in little spurts, has had good games. Had a decent game last week. If you don't have Reynolds already, go out and get Reynolds. I mean, without Amon St. Ra, he's had great last couple weeks. Has been really, really good for the Lions. So I've got him on a bunch of teams. I already had him, but if you don't have him, he's a guy. Go get him first, and then Khalif Raymond is basically just a guy in case there's injuries that keep happening for the Lions.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear if you read the ones I had off on the show sheet yet, but
I talked about a bunch of the rookie tight ends, about how those guys go out and get those if you can.
Greg Dulcich,
Mike Lee, Dolchich, Bellinger, Kate Otten.
Yeah.
I said now's the time. Now's the time to kind of go out and get those rookie tight ends. As I said, hey, if you went in thinking Albert O was going to be your guy, now's the time to drop him and go get some of those rookie guys that have high upside going the rest of the year.
All right, let's go through some real fast. I'm gonna run through some trades real fast. These are all from my home leagues, spread apart. They're a 12-team dynasty, superflex, PPR, tight end premium 0.75, 12 starters, quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receivers, tight end, 2 flex, and a super flex with 20 bench spots. So 30-man total roster. Ramondre Stevenson for 2024 first. What do you think? A guy in win now, right now, obviously.
Yeah. If you're win now, I like Stevenson with the Harrison injury news. Obviously, if you're a guy that's building, I'm absolutely selling him for a first, no doubt about it. On the other side, but if I'm a guy that's competing, Stevenson's going to have some high upside. Again, hamstring injuries are the worst. It takes 1 second to tweak that injury. So, and the Patriots, they're going to pound the rock. So I like that move. If you can get it and you're win now, go ahead and do it.
And then in a different league, Damian Pierce for 224 seconds happened right after that. I'm like, man, these people are throwing away draft picks like crazy. And I would have thought Pierce would have been going for a lot more than Stevenson, but because Stevenson's already
224 seconds for Pierce, I like it a ton. I mean, if you look at it, if you redraft right now, that rookie draft, Pierce is going in. I had some drafts that he went late first round. He's going early first round. He's going over James Cook for sure.
Yeah.
He's going early first round. So sometimes it's recency biasing on things, but I always try to look at it and say, hey, what would that guy go for? And if he was in next year's draft and we've already seen the production, what would he go for?
Yeah.
If you take Damian Pierce and you put him in next year's draft, he's going probably top 5, even in a stacked draft, because people have seen him and they've seen that he's performed. I take it. If I can get Damian Pierce for 2 seconds, I'd do it. I've got him in a couple leagues. A couple people have been offering for me. I'm trying to decide if I want to take it. I would maybe give him up for a first and a second, but it's going to be tough to get that.
Jared Goff for 24 second and third. Now this is hard because he showed some flashes, and if they really want to rebuild him on this team, if Goff keeps it up like average, better than average, they can rebuild through the draft on defensive free agency and keep Goff around and win games with a bunch of talented players and a better defense on this team. I mean, they don't need to get a quarterback next year if Goff he doesn't need to go ham like he's been doing the first couple of weeks.
Yeah,
and he can't just shit the bed like he did last week either. But if he can maintain like some kind of top 15 quarterback status, they could keep him around for another year and rebuild around the offense, which I think they should do.
Yeah, in a super flex or 2 QB league, I like that move. I get a feeling, and you saw it with the Lions passing on QB after QB after QB last year in the draft. I feel like they like Goff. I really do. I feel like they think that they can build everywhere else. They already got money committed to Goff. It's not like they're like, oh, he's going to get paid pretty soon. We got to get rid of him. They're already paying him.
Yeah.
So I think if he plays solid, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to get rid of him and start all over with a new QB. I think they keep him. I think it's worth it because I don't think he's a guy with 1 foot out the door like a lot of these other QBs, like a Mills. I feel like Mills is 1 foot out the door.
Yeah.
I feel like Goff, I think they're going to give him the next 2 years. I really do.
The next 2 years, huh?
So I think they got the if they can get young guys all around them and it still doesn't work, then I think they kick out and they go QB after that. But I think they go with Goff. So if you can make that move and get Goff and you're contending, I like it. Obviously, on the other side, if I have Goff and I'm not contending, I'm absolutely selling at this high point right now. And I feel like, last week was a down week, but I felt like we should have all seen that coming at the Patriots. That felt like an absolute, like, oh man, it's a trap game. The Lions have had the number one offense, and now they're in trouble. And the Patriots did what the Patriots do. They shut people down when they're at their highest. So I felt like
Yeah.
that. I feel like he's going to get a bounce back game. I felt like that game we should have seen that coming.
I had a bunch of quarterbacks, and Golf was like I had quarterback 4, so I shifted away. This is probably about 3 weeks ago or a month. It was right before the season started, actually, probably about a month ago, and I traded Golf away for Ramondre Stevenson and a really high 23 second round pick for like by far the worst team in the league. So I'm like, you know what, I should probably. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I got you back, John.
I don't know what
Yeah,
happened
I
there.
lost. Yeah, I lost you for a second there.
All right. You hear the Conklin, Jeff Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence for Russell Wilson, Hopkins, and Leonard Fournette.
Lawrence Conklin, who?
It is Tyler Conklin, Jeff Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence for Russell Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Leonard Fournette. So, in a perfect world, you'd kind of Russell Wilson and Trevor Lawrence would kind of cancel themselves out. Hopkins is probably better than the Wilson and Tyler Conklin combined, and then Leonard Fournette's kind of an add-in. So, what do you think about that trade?
I mean, I'm on a Lenny side. If I'm winning, I'm
Right.
going for it. I'm taking the Lenny side easy all day, every day. That's me. I mean, the only way I'm taking the other side is if I'm rebuild and I like Trevor Lawrence in the rebuild. That's the only way I go. Or if it's you're desperate in a tight start tight end two tight end premium, then
Right.
maybe I take Conklin in that deal. But obviously, I think the Fournette side is the way to roll on that.
Yep. All right. Jameis Winston, MVS, Jalen Tolbert, and a 24 third for 220 or 23 second and 223 thirds. So Winston, MVS, Jalen Tolbert. I like Jalen Tolbert a lot. He's kind of buried in the Cowboys depth chart. But Winston, I don't know. I'm a humongous Jameis Winston fan. I love Jameis Winston, but I kind of think the writing's on the wall for Winston now. I think people have seen all they need to see with Winston. I'm not sure he'll ever, pan out to what we want to see him. MVS, I think, is a gadget guy. I know he signed a 3-year contract with the Chiefs, but I think he's not meant for that team. They need a small, speedy guy like Tyreek Hill back to make that offense kind of thrive. Tolbert,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean Tolbert's the guy I like in that group. Um, I like the picks probably. Honestly, I think Jameis is about as high as he's gotten. I don't think. I mean, I think his value is just dropping, dropping, dropping. Um, just because, not that I don't think he's a good quarterback, I just think his fantasy value of being that stud, throwing the ball everywhere, touchdown guy, a million yards is kind of out the window these days. So I'm probably taking the picks unless I'm, again, situation wise, I'm desperate for a second QB and a super flex or something, and then I'm going out and getting Jameis or something like that.
Yeah, right. 23 and a 24 first for CMC, Chuba Hubbard, and a 25 fifth, with 24 fifth, sorry. So 23 and 24 first round picks will probably be late for CMC and Chuba Hubbard, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a toughie. Everybody's asking about where CMC's value is. I mean, if you asked 2 years ago, it's 3, 4 first rounders. So
Yeah.
if you can get two firsts for him and you're a win now team, I'm making that trade. I'll give up a first this year and a first next year for him. If I'm in a team that's trying to win a championship, I'll take it. I had a league where a guy was trying to sell me CMC. I wanted him bad, but he wanted a couple firsts. He wanted first and like a couple good players, like first and Alec Pierce. But I'm in like a 2 year. I'm probably 2 years out from competing at this point, so I just couldn't make the move.
Didn't make sense. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
This is a guy who is probably the best team in the league. Traded away his 23 and 24 first to get
John, I'll be
CMC.
right back. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah. So the next one is Corey Davis for Eno Benjamin. That happened, probably a couple weeks ago, but I think it's an even trade. Eno might have a chance at some serious touches this week. So we'll see what happens. But I think Corey Davis is a favorite for Zach Wilson. So that's pretty even trade. And I got that. I got the Corey Davis side of that trade. Decaf Metcalf for Garrett Wilson. I mean, this is one of those, I think it's like 50-50. That's only time will tell who's going to be the better player here, but they're both outstanding players. And, who knows? Metcalf might be a little bit more of a win now team, but over the long run, I think maybe Garrett Wilson might end up being the better receiver overall.
Sorry about that. I'm right back.
I just this is one that I traded away Eno Benjamin to get Corey Davis a couple weeks ago. Eno Benjamin might have some opportunities this week, but I think Corey Davis is also a sweetheart for Zach Wilson's eyes. So I needed I'm in a rebuild right now, so I don't want any running backs in my team, especially ones that are just going to be part-time players. So if he's in a pop situation right now, I want to get rid of him to get Corey Davis, the receiver, to get like a second flex player or something.
Oh yeah, I'm all about Corey Davis in that pick. I mean, if I'm moving, you only get Eno if you are like desperate for a flex running back or a backup, like maybe bye week fill in here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's the long term answer. I'm taking Corey Davis all day on that if I can.
Decaf Metcalf for Garrett Wilson. Which side do you want? Dynasty. This is a long-term dynasty. So,
I think that's a pretty even deal, honestly. I think it's even all around. It just depends on which guy you prefer. Yeah, that's a toughie. Everybody, DK's value was in the tank before the season, but now that Geno's playing so well, people are back on top on him. Like I said, I think that Jets offense is surprising. I mean, I thought that thing was going to be garbage, but I thought that was like, I'll take that back. They have a lot of talent, and I thought there was no way they were going to put it together with all the talent they had to be fantasy relevant, and they've actually looked pretty good. I like Garrett Wilson a lot. I think he's really solid. Again, I think here's what I'll say. If I'm in a deep passing league, long touchdowns, premium, where big plays score me a lot of points, I'm taking DK. If I'm in a PPR league where it's like PPR first downs, those kind of bonuses, I'm taking Garrett Wilson. I think it's a little bit depends on scoring, but I have leagues where it's no PPR or it's half PPR, but it's way big points for long touchdowns and huge plays, like 40, 50-yard plays. If I'm in that type of league, I'm taking DK.
Yeah. I think in the long run, Garrett Wilson be better play, but if you're going to win now, you're taking DK Metcalf, I think. Yeah. So last one, 24 third for Joe Flacco and a 24 fifth and a fifth, whatever. So 24 third for Joe Flacco. I'm taking the 24 third, which is my side of the trade, 100 out of 100 days of the year. So
every time smash all day long. Anything you can get for Joe Flacco is a sell Joe Flacco and take whatever you can get for him.
Yeah. All right. We got to go through this team real fast. Okay. We got 10 minutes to talk about it at the very most. So as usual, these are Mighty McGlynn home leagues. These are 12-team leagues, Superflex, Dynasty, Tight End Premium, 0.75, 12 starters. I read through all the same trade scenarios. These are all my home league stuff. So one of the guys in my home league's name is Sean Roach. This is his team. There's 4 really, really good teams in this league that are just stacked. They're all they're head and shoulders above everybody else. And then Sean's team is like the first of the middle tier. And there's from team 12, 11, 10, 9 are all stacked. And then team 8 to 3 are kind of somewhere mushed in the middle. And then there's a couple bad, 2 and 1 are just really bad teams, So this is his team. He's kind of in win now because it's all you got to do is make the playoffs, and anything could happen. We all know that trick. So he's got Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Christian Kirk, Brandon Cooks. Oh, you know what? I got to share this so you can see it too.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, so I see it. I've got it pulled up
All
on
right.
my screen, so I can see it.
McLaurin, then Tyler Higbee's his tight end. Jamal Williams. Let's see. Hold on. He's got Melvin Gordon, and then he's got Jared Goff as quarterback. And then on his bench, he's got Jameis Winston, Matt Ryan, Cooper Rush, Daniel Jones. So he's got a handful of average quarterback, mid-road quarterbacks, and mid quarterbacks we'll call them. And then he's got Kareem Hunt, Rashad Penny, who's done now, Damian Williams, Darrell Henderson, Alexander Madison, Duke Johnson, Jalen Warren, which he outbid me on Fab on Jalen Warren. This is the only league I don't have Jalen Warren in. Michael Thomas, Tyler Boyd, MVS, Paris Campbell, Laviska Shenault, Jalen Tolbert, Hooper, Tunyon, and Freiermuth. His draft picks, he's got a 23 fourth, a 23 fifth, and then 24 third, a 24 fourth, 25th. So he's got no first, second picks next year, and only one late, probably 20, or let's say average 24 third, like in 2024. So he considers himself a win now. Right now, he traded his picks away to get this team where it's at. Where do you see this team? Because he doesn't really, unless he starts trading guys away, he's got to ride out the rest of the season with this team. I think it's a pretty good team. We'll go over to running backs first. Like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in right away. I have 2 or 3, maybe 4 teams that are very similar to this team that I'm not top 4, but I'm right there. I'm just on the outside. And I've been in debate with very similar teams like this. Do I sell? Do I try to win now? To me, he is in the middle, and it sucks to be in the middle, but I think he's got to try to win now. I don't think if he sells off right now, he's not going to be able to sell off enough to totally rebuild. Again, he's got enough talent. If he makes the playoffs, he could upset because it's not like I mean, there's a difference between a fringe team that you might make the playoffs and unless everything hits like crazy, there's no shot you're going to win. He's got a shot to win some of these games. I mean, he's got some players that have huge potential. I mean, Lamar Jackson, a monster. He can have monster games. Eckler can have monster games. Aaron Jones can have monster games. I think Christian Kirk's going to be solid. He had a terrible week last week, but he's been good. McLaren, I think, is going to get better throughout the year with Wentz. Higbee, who I don't like necessarily, but right now he's like literally the only other player than Cooper Kupp. So he's got him as a chance. Obviously, Matt Ryan, I'd get out of my lineup immediately. I'd start playing Jared Goff, but with the way Goff's been playing, and even Daniel Jones, with some of their matchups, with the way he runs the football, I think you got a shot. And then you also can see if Jameis comes back and starts hitting for them. Kareem Hunt, even though he's not going to score you 30 or 40 in a backup role. He's a guy that's going to get you a nice floor. I think he's a good flex play every week with the way they're pounding the rock. Obviously, Jamal Williams is a little bit tied to Swift. Penny being out really kills him. Henderson, you just don't know if they're going to start using him again. Ramador Stevenson, like you said, bam, I'd start getting him in the lineup every week. Brandon Cooks, I get him up in the lineup every week and take out Tyler Boyd. So I do think this is a team that definitely can compete. He maybe doesn't have on paper the most talent in the league, but he definitely has enough boom guys that he could win with this team if it hits right in the playoffs. And I just don't think, with him trading all those picks away, I just don't think you can dump right now because you'd have to dump too much for picks. And if you already have your own picks and can dump and double up, I feel like that's how you win those rebuilds. Oh, I got 2 or 3 firsts, 2 or 3 seconds. Right now, he's gonna have a hard time doing that because he doesn't have any of his own picks. And like I said, I'm in the same boat in a couple other leagues where I've kind of win now, and I've traded a lot of my first and second rounders the next 2 years. And so I think at this point in those leagues, I know I'm primed for a downfall in the next year or two where my team's going to bottom out. But at this point, I don't think there's an option. I'm just going to have to ride the wave, hope I make the playoffs and compete. And at some point, I know I'm either going to have to sell players off for 50 cents on the dollar and I'm just gonna or I'm just gonna have to bomb out and rebuild the whole thing. But he's young enough. It's not like he has a million old guys that I think he had. I mean, if he was sitting on like Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Derrick Henry, maybe I'm like, oh man, like he's 1 year away from just falling off the cliff. But his team is young enough. I think he could still compete this year and still have a nice lineup next year going into next year where it's not like, oh man, all these guys are going to be dead by next year. So I'm sticking with it if I'm him. I'm playing the right lineups, hoping a couple things break my way with injuries, bye weeks, and then you just got to hope, you get in that playoffs and you have that week where Ramador Stevenson, scores 35 like Rex Burkhead did last year for Houston in the playoffs, and all of a sudden it takes you to the championship game and beats a team that should have dominated you. But, Lamar scores 40, Stevenson scores 35, Eckler picks up 40, and you win. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely has it's not like he's playing a bunch of like, oh man, I'm hoping these guys get 10 or 15 points. He has a bunch of guys that can score a lot of points on a given week. So, I think he's got to stay the course. Maybe you try to get one or two more guys. Maybe wheel and deal. You see if you got some teams that are quarterback needy. Maybe you move a couple of those QBs and see if you can get either a player that can help you this year, even if it's a short-term player, or a few extra draft picks. I'm one of those people. I don't mind collecting third rounders because I feel like I draft pretty well every year.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
feel like those guys actually make my team. Where I'm in leagues where people are like, I don't give a crap about my third round pick. Anything past a second is worthless. And I'm like, and that's just certain people's strategy. I mean, I feel like in a dynasty, I could pile up. I mean, I don't know how many leagues I piled up 3 or 4 rookie tight ends this year where all I had was third and fourth or fifth round picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going Otten, Likely, Bellinger, Rucker, all those guys. And that's why I'm saying I think some of those later picks can be worth something if you use them right. So even if he can package like a Cooper Rush or say he's like, hey, I think I'm good with Goff, I'm good with my other QBs. Maybe I try to push Winston to a team and see if I can get a second out of Winston or even a third, maybe an early third out of Winston. Maybe it's worth it to give you a little bit for the future. But I definitely don't blow it up. I fight through this year and see what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, if he definitely has a wild card team, if he can go with Lamar Jackson and either Goff or if Winston starts lighting it on fire later in the season, that's a great 1-2 combo for the super flex. He's going to start Eckler and Jones if there's no injuries, hopefully
Yeah.
not. He's going to start McLaurin, Christian Kirk, and Brandon Cooks probably, and then Firemouth, and then for his let's say maybe if
He's got
Steven,
Hunt back up. That's nice. I mean,
yeah,
maybe Henderson starts getting some carries. Madison always is a potential breakout if you get a hurt to Cooks. I mean, he's got Stevenson's great. Like I said, we just talked about Warren. I love Warren for late in the season. I think he's a great flex play as the year goes on. And then you hope maybe Tolbert gets a little bit of PT for Dallas late in the year, and he can get you some points.
I don't trust Michael Thomas as like that he'll be
Oh, I don't at
healthy the
all.
rest of this
If
year.
if I could move Michael Thomas or one of these wide receivers, some of these like maybe package 2 of these wide receivers together for another player. If I could move like a Michael Thomas,
And
a
MBS,
Valdez Scantling, like
yes.
move those 2 guys for like one other guy.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think who would be in that range, but if I can move those 2 guys to a team that needs a few more players, maybe those 2 guys in a QB, maybe those 2 guys in a Matt Ryan for like one better wide receiver, like a wide receiver 2. That's kind of a move I would be looking at making there because he is deep enough, and I wouldn't feel like I have to play those guys. If I could get an upgrade at wide receiver position, that would be what I'd be looking to do on his team.
You know what else I try to do is maybe get rid of like do the Michael Thomas or MVS and try to trade one of those, or if it takes Matt Ryan and MVS or Matt Ryan and Michael Thomas, and try and go after like Rashad White or something like that. That might have a chance of taking a full time role if somebody goes down.
Or Rashad
Somebody
White, maybe. I mean, a little bit harder because he's been playing well lately, but like an Alec Pierce, if you can move those guys
get
for like a
off the
young wide
Colts
receiver or something.
players.
I think he's a guy he's a guy you could go for. I mean, I definitely think there's some younger guys out there that you could maybe pick up that have some higher upside.
Ayuk, maybe under
Um,
the radar
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
There's a guy. Yeah, there's a guy. I think you could maybe go like, hey, let me trade. Especially MVS coming off this nice week last week for the Chiefs. I think that's
Mhm.
going to be few and far between. Maybe you take him. You say, hey, I'll trade him and Thomas for Ayuk. Something like that. I
Maybe
mean,
a
I think
James,
that's
maybe a James Cook, something like that, that might pick up later in the
Yep,
season.
yep. And I think it may, in that then again, if you could go somebody a little bit younger, where you go,
Hmm.
so okay, like, hey, I'm getting a little bit older, but I'm still competing. Can I pick up a young piece that maybe not be hit right now, but
Sky
will
Moore,
maybe yes, do I would make that move in 2 seconds if I
yeah,
could
buddy,
trade. I mean, if I could trade MVS and Michael Thomas for Sky Moore, done. I
yeah,
mean,
done.
done immediately. So, I mean, even if you could move those guys, it wouldn't help you this year. But I mean, even if you move those guys for like a Christian Watson or somebody possibly or Dubs, but if you could go an older guy, I mean, I wouldn't hate that move to get an older, little more sure-handed guy. I'm trying to think on top of my head. I wish Thielen was a little more consistent.
Yeah,
I would maybe do a Thielen. I'm trying to think someone in that range, someone in that Thielen range that I maybe would go to. Um, I don't know.
uh,
It's I try. I'm blanking off the top of my head who I'd go. But if I could find somebody that like I feel like I could get some decent production who's not a high end name that someone's not loving and attached to,
Corey
might be a good
Davis,
way.
Kadarius
What's that?
Tony, maybe.
I like that. I like a Corey Davis move. I really like that move. If you could swing one, even an MVS straight up for Corey Davis, or even like throw two guys for Corey Davis, even if you got to slightly overpay, I don't mind a slight overpay with two players for one,
You know who's
especially
another
if you're out on guys.
good under the radar player that I wouldn't mind like taking Matt Ryan just right now is like someone like Nico Collins who might he hasn't really hit any stride yet, but I think he's a very good player. He was hurt all last year. He could be someone that could pop out. That you never know what's
Yeah,
going to
he's
happen with him.
he's a guy with a high upside. I also think, I mean, he's a guy I think going into next year will be year three for him. And if you get a new young QB, say they get a CJ Stroud or they get a Bryce Young, and Nico going into his third year, I could see Nico really having a breakout next year. But I also could see him being pretty solid down the stretch at the end of this year.
I know. I'm
Um,
trying to get him
so
everywhere.
so that's a guy I wouldn't mind making a move to. I mean, most people would kind of consider that a lateral move
Yeah.
from MVS, but it just depends on who you like. He is younger, more upside. So if you are trying to make some moves and get some younger guys on your team, I mean, I think that's not a terrible idea.
Yeah. All right, home slice. Thank you very much. 2 hours and 39 minutes later, we had a great show. I love talk. I mean, this could have been a
Sorry, I get
7 hour
chatting
show.
away, man. I get
I,
chatting away on these teams. I got too much to say about everybody. And
you know
you
what?
gave me a couple weeks off, so I had it all built up. I had a couple of things I wanted to talk about, get out about some players. So that's my bad.
Yeah, that's all right. You know what? Literally, I love doing this. This is, I don't get, obviously we don't get paid for it. It's just fun doing this stuff, and it's we got to hang out in person one of these weekends when I got off on a Sunday. How's your Sundays like? Are you
I'll
done?
tell
Are you
you,
just watching
you got to
football
get
day, or
down here, and I got to take you to a Colts game one time. We got to go over and hang out at Colts
I've
game,
been
hang
there
out in
before.
Indy.
I've been there like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, nice, nice. Go to
Yeah,
the whistle stop after the
it's
game.
it's a great town. It's a great
Oh, I
that
love
place is
Indy, man.
awesome.
So
Yeah,
easy to get around. It's not super expensive. It's a great game day spot. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that's. I mean, it's really what is it, a 4 hour ride from here or something like that? Or you live a bit further
yeah, for
west than
you,
me,
for
so
for us, it's about an hour and a half, hour 45. It's real easy. It's actually shorter than driving to Chicago for me.
really. Oh, you 2 hours south of me. That's right, an hour and a half.
Yeah, so I'm
Oh,
about I'm about 2.5 from Chicago, depending on where you're at in Chicago. If you're
yeah.
south side, southwest side, I'm about 2 hours. If you're going a little higher, farther up through, if I gotta get in the city, it's about 2.5 or so. But I can get to Indy in about an hour 45 from my place. It's straight shot, 74 straight east. That's real
Yeah.
easy.
All right, JT. Where can they find you at on a Twitter machine?
Yeah, check me out at JT Orange. JT Orange is where you'll find me. I talk a little bit about everything. If you want to hit me up about IDP, I know John hates it, but I talk IDP. See, he just talked about C2C. I just got a new C2C in Devi League this year. I'm all over it. I love it. So I've been on a lot of the C2C chats lately talking about college players, Devi guys. So hit me up if you want to talk about any about that, ask about trades, pickup guys. I've been paying a lot of attention to the college game this year. So you can hit me up on JT Orange on Twitter.
All right, Home Slice. Thanks so much. Hopefully I'll see you every week or whenever we can get together or whenever. This is I love doing this shit. Hopefully I didn't take up too much of your time
Yep.
and hope you had a good time tonight.
Hey, keep dominating on Scott Fishbowl, man. That's we have 12.
I'm trying.
I am falling apart since you beat me in the week 1. Started 5-1. I am falling apart. I'm 5-5. I scored 70 points last week. It was brutal.
What's worse?
So
what's worse, scoring 70 points or scoring 170 and being the second highest scorer and losing by fucking 2 points? What's worse?
Yeah, I'd rather have 772 points and at least get a win. 72 points just drops you to the end. I mean, I've been in the top 300 for most of the year, and I just have plummeted the last 2 weeks. I'm way down now.
I got to look and see where I'm at on there, if I'm even close to the top 500 or something like that. I don't know where. I scored pretty well. I'm only like 70 points behind the top.
You should be in the mix. I can't remember where I saw you last, where you were at, but yeah, until the last 2 weeks, when I just completely fell apart, I was in the top 300 until then, and now I'm a disaster. So you probably have the mix. He sends out an email every week with a leaderboard, and then you can search your team name on there to see where you're at.
I'm technologically unadvanced, so I can see the top 20. That's about as far as I need.
I'll look it up for you and I'll send it to you. How's that sound?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thanks, homie. Talk to you later.
Yep.